Chapter 76. The Despicable Neighbor. The woman in the hospital bed was awake, but her mental state was poor. Her eyes were clouded, and her skin lacked the luster of life. The driver set the heavy fruit basket on the bedside table. The woman's gaze drifted to the two strangers who had appeared so suddenly in her ward. "Hello, Auntie. I'm a friend of your daughter, Feng Suan. I came specifically to visit you," Wang Haoran said. He offered a polite, practiced smile. "Thank you. Please, take a seat. I apologize, but you'll have to move the stool yourself." The woman was so weakened by her illness she couldn't sit up. Her voice was thin, punctuated by a weary rasp. Wang Haoran didn't have to lift a finger. The driver immediately pulled a stool from the corner, wiped the surface clean with a crisp tissue, and placed it precisely in front of his master. "Ugh, what is that smell? It's absolutely revolting." A shrill voice cut through the quiet of the ward. A middle-aged woman in her 50s stomped into the room, her nose wrinkled in theatrical disgust. She pointed a gnarled finger at Feng Suan's mother and began to shriek. "You old ghost. You look like you're halfway to the grave already. Just die and be done with it. You've made this entire room smell like a rot heap. How am I supposed to live in these conditions?" I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble," Feng Suan's mother whispered. She looked down at her sheets, her apology humble and broken. "You know you're a burden, don't you? If you'd hurry up and pass, the air would clear up, and your children wouldn't have to waste their lives and money on a lost cause." The woman's tone was dripping with venomous sarcasm. Feng Suan's mother fell silent. Treatment for uremia was an endless drain on the family's resources. Their savings were gone, replaced by a mountain of debt that grew with every dialysis session. She knew she was an anchor dragging her children down. To her, death sounded like a mercy. "Look at your family. Even if you found a kidney donor today, you couldn't afford the surgery. My family is different. My son is successful. He has already secured a donor for me. It won't be long before I'm back on my feet." The neighbor saw the pained expression on the dying woman's face and leaned in, eager to rub salt into the open wound. "Throw her out," Wang Haoran commanded. Even as a villain, he found the display sickening. Both women suffered from the same agonizing condition. Yet this it felt the need to torture her neighbor for sport. The driver didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, grabbed the shouting woman by the arm, and physically hoisted her toward the door. "Mom!" A man in his 30s charged into the room, his face flushed with rage. "What are you doing? Let her go." He threw a desperate punch at the driver's face, but he was weak and clumsy. The driver sidestepped the blow and shoved the man, sending him sprawling onto the linoleum floor. "You bastard! Do you have any idea who I am? I'm the deputy general manager of Tiancheng Company. I make $1 million a year. You're dead. Just wait until I'm through with you." The man barked, scrambled to his feet. The driver's expression remained stony. He turned his head slightly toward Wang Haoran, waiting for a signal. "Hey, Dad. Is Tiancheng Company anything special?" Wang Haoran asked into his phone, having already dialed his father. "Ha, it's a joke of a firm. The whole outfit isn't worth $100 million, Wang Xiang's voice boomed through the speaker. "Why? Did they mess with you, son? They must be tired of living. Give me 3 days, and I'll have the doors shuttered for good. Don't go to that much trouble. I just find their deputy general manager unpleasant. Have them fire him immediately. Consider it done." Wang Haoran ended the call. "This kid actually thinks he can act." The aunt sneered, clutching her son's arm. "My son is a deputy manager. He doesn't get fired because a teenager says so." "Mom, shut up. Just be quiet." The son's voice was trembling. The sneer on the woman's face froze. She looked at her son and saw him swaying as if he were about to faint. The man had been too blinded by rage to look at the boy in the chair. Now that he did, he saw the aristocratic aura, the expensive clothes, and the silent, professional driver standing guard. The driver wore white gloves. Only the wealthy employed staff with that level of formality. People who rode in Mercedes Maybachs or Rolls Royces. "Young master, please. Give me a chance. I was wrong. I was so wrong," the son blubbered, snot and tears beginning to track down his face. "One more word and I'll kill you," Wang Haoran said. His voice was flat, bored, and utterly terrifying. The man's mouth snapped shut. He practically dragged his mother out of the ward, fleeing to another wing of the hospital to escape the boy's gaze. Ding. The host has intercepted a moment intended for Fang Heng. By performing a face-slapping event, the host has earned 200 villain points. Fang Heng's protagonist Halo, -10. Host's villain Halo, +10. So, this was a setup. The neighbor and her son were supposed to be the villains Fang Heng would defeat to impress his sister. Wang Haoran smirked. "Mom, A voice called out from the hallway just before Fang Suan walked in. She stopped dead when she saw Wang Haoran sitting by the bed. Her eyes widened with sudden panic. "Xiao Suan, you're here. Your friend brought fruit to see me," her mother said, a genuine smile lighting up her tired face. "Friend?" Fang Suan relaxed slightly, her heart slowing its frantic pace. "Thank you for visiting her," she said to Wang Haoran. "It was no trouble," he replied. Fang Suan shivered. Whenever he was polite, she felt a sense of impending doom. To her, the word friend from his lips sounded like a locked door. "We don't have much to offer you here. My brother is shopping downstairs. What would you like to eat?" "I can call him," she offered, trying to be hospitable. "I'm not hungry." "Oh." The conversation stalled. Fang Suan was too uneasy to keep looking at him, so she turned to her mother. "Mom, when I walked in, I saw the mother and son from the next bed. They looked terrified." "What happened?" She knew those two were miserable people. Her mother had suffered their insults for months, and Fang Suan loathed them for it. Her mother began to recount the entire confrontation, detailing how Wang Haoran had defended her. As the story finished, Fang Suan stared at Wang Haoran in stunned silence. Ding. Heroine Fang Suan's favorability has increased by 15. Total 45. Very friendly. Ding. The host has influenced the plot direction. 200 villain points awarded. Chapter 77. I bought this painting. Mom, I'm here. Fang Heng entered the ward with a wide, happy smile, carrying a large bag of groceries. That joy evaporated the moment he spotted the one person he truly didn't want to see. His face darkened instantly. "Yo, what is a pampered, rich second generation like you doing here?" Fang Heng's voice was thick with sarcasm. "Xiao Heng, don't be rude," Fang Suan reprimanded him sharply. "He came specifically to visit Mom." Fang Heng pouted, setting his bags down. There is nothing to be gained by being diligent without a reason. He's either a traitor or a thief. Fang Suan felt a prickle of annoyance, but she didn't scold him further. Fang Heng was her brother, and she had no desire to humiliate him in front of an outsider. Besides, her own feelings toward Wang Haoran were a mess. She knew he was a bad person, yet she couldn't summon any real disgust. In fact, she felt a strange, contradictory pull to be near him. "Xiao Heng, this is your sister's friend," their mother said from the bed. Her voice was firm despite her weakness. She was still grateful for how Haoran had handled the obnoxious neighbors. "You are not allowed to be disrespectful, or I will knock you on the head myself." Fine. I'll be polite." Fang Heng reached into his bag, pulled out an apple, and tossed it toward Wang Haoran. "Here, eat." Haoran caught it easily with one hand. He didn't eat it. He disliked apples, and this one hadn't been washed. He knew exactly what the boy was doing. If he weren't busy harvesting this protagonist's wool, he would have thrown the fruit back and slapped the smirk right off Fang Heng's face. He decided to let the kid have his moment of pride. The fall would be much harder later. "Xiao Heng, those aren't washed. Why would you give that to a guest?" his mother asked. "Please. A rich guy like him doesn't like common food anyway. He wouldn't eat it even if it were scrubbed clean. Why bother?" Their mother's face froze in embarrassment. She opened her mouth to argue, but Fang Heng quickly changed the subject. "What happened to the annoying mother and son in the next bed? Did they finally get discharged?" "They left," Fang Suan replied. "They won't be living here anymore." "What happened?" Fang Suan relayed the story her mother had told her. As she finished, Fang Heng didn't look grateful. He glared at Wang Haoran with renewed fury. He had been planning to teach those two a lesson himself to vent his long-simmering malice. Now, Haoran had stolen his thunder and chased them away before he could act. "You're being awfully kind to my family for no reason," Fang Heng said, stepping closer to Haoran. "I think you're trying to pursue my sister, aren't you?" "Pursue your sister?" Haoran let out a short, amused laugh. "You think too much. Pursue her?" He'd already shared her bed twice. There was no need for the chase. "If you aren't after my sister, then why are you hanging around?" Fang Heng's lip curled. "Don't think a little stinky money makes you amazing. I have money too." He reached into his bag and produced a half-meter-long scroll. He held it up like a trophy. "Have you seen this? Someone offered me 4 million for it today, and I turned them down." Fang Suan's heart skipped a beat. 4 million? That must be the buyer Wang Haoran arranged. She looked at her brother with exasperation. How can he be so stupid? Why didn't he sell it? "What is it?" Haoran asked, feigning surprise. "It's a painting of horses by Zhao Minfu. But you wouldn't know anything about that. You probably don't even know who Zhao Minfu is," Fang Heng sneered. He had kept the painting specifically to flaunt it in front of the neighbors. He wanted to show that old woman that while her son worked a whole year for 1 million, he could find several times that amount in an afternoon at Furukawa Street. It was supposed to be his big reveal, ruined by Haoran. Fang Suan felt a wave of shame. She knew her brother. He had been a mediocre student who never took his studies seriously. Now, after reading a few books on antiques, he thought he was a grandmaster. It was embarrassing. In her mind, that broken painting wouldn't be worth $50 if Haoran hadn't sent someone to fake an interest in it. I've heard of Zhao Menfo, Haoran said slowly, his tone educational. A famous painter, calligrapher, and poet from the late Southern Song to the early Yuan dynasty. He was known as the Crown of the Yuan. He created a new style of painting, and is considered one of the four masters of regular script alongside Wang, Yan, and Liu. Fang Heng blinked, stunned. He only knew the name because his golden finger ability had identified the item. He actually knew almost nothing about the artist's history. I didn't expect you to know that. Not bad, Fang Heng said, trying to regain his superior footing by acting like a seasoned appraiser. Xiao Heng, can that painting really sell for that much money? Their mother asked, her eyes wide. It's absolutely true, Mom. Fang Heng's voice was filled with conviction. I sold an antique for 5 million just recently, and this is the second treasure I've found. Someone bid 4 million on the spot. Your son has an extraordinary talent for this. Our family is going to be rich. He reached out and took his mother's hand. I've already hired people to search for a kidney donor. Once we find a match, your illness will be cured. You can just relax and enjoy the rest of your life in luxury. Xiao Suan, is this true? The mother looked at her daughter, desperate for confirmation. It's true, Mom. The family has money now. A lot of it. We never have to worry about the bills again, Fang Suan said. She wasn't lying. Half of the 10 million Haoran had promised had already been funneled to her brother. That's wonderful. My son is so promising. The woman burst into tears of joy. Fang Heng stood tall, basking in the glory. Wang Haoran watched the scene for a moment before speaking up. I'm actually interested in collecting art. Would you consider selling that horse painting? Fang Heng turned to him. Like I said, I turned down 4 million. How much are you offering? 5 million. I can transfer the funds right now, Haoran said. Deal. Fang Heng didn't hesitate. He had researched the market value. The painting would typically fetch between 4.5 and 4.8 million at auction. Haoran's bid was over the top. He hated the guy, but he wasn't going to let spite get in the way of 5 million yuan. Haoran pulled out his phone. Within 10 minutes, his dedicated account manager confirmed the transfer, and 5 million was credited to Fang Heng's account. Fang Suan felt a massive weight lift from her shoulders. Wang Haoran was keeping his word. He was delivering the money exactly as promised. Ding. The host's manipulation has caused the protagonist's attempt to impress the heroine to fail. 200 villain points awarded. It's yours. Fang Heng held out the scroll. Haoran didn't take it. He gestured for his driver to collect the item. He didn't even bother to unroll the painting to look at it. Fang Heng was baffled by the lack of interest. Fang Suan, however, understood perfectly. The painting was irrelevant. This was just Wang Haoran's way of handing over the money. He didn't need to see it, because he didn't care about the art at all. Chapter 78. The Antiques Trap. You didn't even look at it? Fang Heng's voice climbed an octave. I don't need to. Wang Haoran kept his tone light and indifferent. Then do as you please, but this painting is an authentic Zhao Menfo. Don't doubt its pedigree. I believe you. In fact, if you find any other treasures in the future, bring them to me. I'll always offer a reasonable price. Fang Heng let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Then you'd better prepare hundreds of millions, maybe even billions. I'm worried you won't be able to settle the bill when the time comes. Don't worry about my wallet. I'll accept as much as you can find. Fine. You said it. Fang Heng's eyes sparkled with greed. Antiques were the ultimate shortcut to wealth. He imagined scouring the markets, picking up masterpieces for pennies, and systematically hollowing out the Wang family fortune until Haoran was penniless. Then, he would be the one looking down on the disgraced rich kid. Fang Suan stood by, her face etched with a silent, heavy sadness. She caught Haoran's eye and gestured toward the hallway. They stepped into a vacant ward, the door clicking shut on the sterile silence. You've already given him 10 million, she whispered, her brow furrowed in confusion. Why promise to keep buying from him? Why encourage this? If I don't buy them, who will? Haoran leaned against the wall, his expression a mask of thoughtful concern. The moment he takes one of those pieces to a real expert, he'll find out the first one was a fake. Then how does he explain the 10 million? Do I tell him his sister actually earned that money through our arrangement? Fang Suan recoiled as if struck. The complexity of the lie had overwhelmed her, and she hadn't seen the trap she was walking into. She looked at Haoran with a new sense of admiration. He seemed so thorough, so protective of the secret. But you've played the part of the buyer twice now, she countered, realizing a new problem. My brother actually thinks he has a gift for this. What happens when he finds more treasures? Are you really going to waste hundreds of millions on trash? Haoran suppressed a smile. Spend money. Not a chance. I'll continue to collect the items, he said softly. But whenever your brother asks for payment, I'll tell him I'm sending the money to you for safekeeping. The realization dawned on Fang Xian's face. Haoran wouldn't have to pay a single cent. He would take the antiques, she would tell her brother the money was in her account, and if Fang Heng ever asked for it, she could simply refuse or make excuses. He respected her enough that he wouldn't force the issue. You're so smart, she breathed, the tension leaving her shoulders. No wonder your grades are so high. Ding. The host successfully deceived heroine Fang Xuan. Plot direction influenced. 200 villain points awarded. Fang Heng's protagonist Halo, -10. Host's villain Halo +10. Haoran smiled inwardly. Smart was an understatement. He would soon be taking Fang Heng's legitimate finds for free and flipping them for massive profits. The protagonist was going to become his personal, unpaid treasure hunter. Haoran left the hospital and returned to his hotel in the Cullinan. The moment he opened the door to his suite, a soft, familiar shadow rushed into his arms. Outside, the moon hung low in a star-speckled sky. Inside, a different kind of storm raged until long after midnight. By the time he checked his phone, it was nearly 1 in the morning. When Jing lay beside him, sleeping with the peaceful exhaustion of a kitten, even though she wasn't a heroine like Sum Lian, and her utility was lower than someone like Fang Xuan, Haoran didn't have the heart to cast her aside. She was obedient, asked for nothing, and provided a stress-free comfort he couldn't find elsewhere. He opened his system interface. His villain points had reached a new peak of 3,600. Without hesitation, he spent 3,000 to purchase another 6 years of internal power. A warmth flooded his limbs as the energy integrated into his marrow. Host statistics. Combat strength, 829. Charm 268. Villain Halo, 651. Villain points, 600. Skills Master level painting/calligraphy, Master level Wing Chun, God level singing, Actor level acting, Perspective vision, Advanced poisoning, Top tier hacking, 12 years internal power. The next morning, the interrogation room was a different world. Xiao Yifeng was in a foul mood. The freezing air had forced him to burn through his internal reserves all night just to keep his blood flowing. He hadn't slept a wink on the hard metal chair, and his body was stiff and aching. Worse, he hadn't had a drop of water or a bite of food since his arrest. The hunger was a gnawing beast in his gut. When he heard footsteps in the hall, he began to shout, knowing the cameras were watching. Finally, Ling Dunya walked in, her expression cool and professional. Ready to confess. Yes. But I'm starving. Get him some water and food, she told her colleague. Xiao Yifeng inhaled the meal, leaning back afterward and patting his stomach with a look of smug satisfaction. Start talking, Ling Dunya said, clicking the recorder on. Talk about what? Xiao Yifeng began picking his teeth with a fingernail. Bang! The table jumped. Are you playing with me? Ling Dunya's voice was dangerously low. Don't be like that. I'm telling you the truth. Xiao Yifeng gave her a greasy smile. Beauty, you're sick. It's serious, and no ordinary doctor can help you. Only I can. No needles, just a massage. I promise it won't hurt, and I'll stay with you until the job is done. Ling Dunya took a long, slow breath, fighting the urge to shatter his jaw. She knew she was sick, but Wang Haoran had already offered a dignified, medical solution involving herbs. This man was clearly just a predator using a medical excuse to touch her. Enjoy the air conditioning, she said, standing up. Wait. You have to believe me, no one else in this city can save you. If you don't let me treat you, you'll be paralyzed within a year. The heavy steel door slammed shut, cutting his voice off mid-sentence. In the hallway outside, Ling Dunya turned to the officer on duty. Keep him for another 36 hours. No food. No water. The officer blinked, hesitant. Sister Ling, isn't that against protocol? This one is a professional liar, she replied, her eyes cold. Standard procedures don't work on people like him. If there are questions, I'll take the heat. Understood, Sister Ling. Chapter 79. Go to the first year of junior high school. Ling Dunya finished her brief to the morning shift and prepared to start her day. However, a messenger from the station chief arrived before she could even leave the hallway. The orders were direct: release Xiao Yifeng. Frustrated, Ling Dunya marched to the office to demand an explanation. she found that Qin Kai had already dispatched a high-priced lawyer to secure a bail agreement. In this jurisdiction, with the right legal muscle, there was little she could do to hold him further. "Beauty, I'll take my leave," Xiao Yifeng said as he stepped out of the cell, his freedom restored. He felt a surge of reckless confidence and couldn't resist one final jab. "If you ever decide you want that medical treatment, you can find me anytime. I'm available for you 24 hours a day. Get out." Ling Dunya snapped. Her voice was ice, her eyes filled with a deep, visceral disgust. The smirk faltered on Xiao Yifeng's face. He felt the sting of the rejection, his laughter dying as he turned to follow the lawyer toward the waiting extended luxury car. Inside the plush interior, Qin Kai sat with a deep furrow in his brow. "The admission matter has been settled," he said, his voice tight. "I can go to school." "That's great." Xiao Yifeng practically launched himself off the leather seat in excitement. Qin Kai watched him with a look of bewildered surprise. "I mean, I'll finally be able to protect the eldest miss better. I'm just happy to fulfill my duty." Xiao Yifeng quickly recovered, smoothing his shirt with a sheepish grin. In truth, his heart was racing at the thought of being near her day and night. Constant proximity was the first step toward winning her over completely. "There is a small problem with the arrangement," Qin Kai interrupted his internal celebration. "What kind of problem?" "You won't be in the same class as Qin Yunhan." Xiao Yifeng's shoulders slumped slightly, but he forced the smile back. "That's fine. As long as we're in the same grade, I can still keep an eye on her." "It's not the same grade either." Qin Kai's expression turned pained. "Sophomore year?" Xiao Yifeng asked, his confusion growing. "It's the first year of junior high," Qin Kai said, the words coming out with difficulty. "What?" Xiao Yifeng's jaw dropped. "You want me to go to the 7th grade? Are you joking?" He was 19 years old. The thought of sitting in a tiny desk surrounded by 11- and 12-year-old children was absurd. People would think he was mentally handicapped. Mr. Tang agreed to the enrollment, but he insisted on following the proper academic process. Qin Kai explained bitterly. "Since you have no official records from your village, and your testing level didn't meet high school standards, 7th grade was the only option they offered." Qin Kai had tried to negotiate, but Tang Lao had been immovable. Despite the embarrassment, it was a foothold. Having Xiao Yifeng inside the gates was better than leaving him on the sidewalk. "Uncle Qin, look at me. Does a man my age belong in junior high?" "Of course not. But you aren't there to study, Yifeng. You're there to protect Yunhan. Your grade level doesn't change your mission." "But." "No buts. If you protect her well, I will make it worth your while. I'll ensure you are compensated for the indignity." Xiao Yifeng let out a long, reluctant sigh. "Fine, I'll do it." He reasoned that if he could save the eldest miss a few times, her gratitude would far outweigh the laughter of a few children. At the school gates, Wang Haoran paused as a notification flashed across his vision. Ding. The host's behind-the-scenes manipulation has resulted in the protagonist entering the first year of junior high school. Plot direction influenced. 200 villain points awarded. Haoran tucked his phone away, a subtle smirk playing on his lips as he walked into the classroom. "I'll have the driver take you the rest of the way," Qin Kai offered. "No need. It's not far. I'll walk and clear my head." Xiao Yifeng stepped out of the car, feeling the need to vent his frustration through movement. He wandered down the road toward the campus, eventually passing through a local park. It was early, and the morning air felt crisp and revitalizing. He found a bench and sat for a moment, breathing deeply to settle his mood. After a few minutes, an elderly man in a tracksuit slowed his jog and sat at the far end of the bench. The man's face was pale, his breath coming in ragged, short gasps. Seeing the distress, Xiao Yifeng immediately stood and moved to his side, his hands finding the pressure points on the man's shoulders and neck. Within 2 minutes of steady massage, the old man's color returned. His breathing leveled out, becoming deep and rhythmic. "Young man, thank you," the elder said, patting his chest in relief. "Don't mention it." Xiao Yifeng waved a hand dismissively. "But at your age, you shouldn't push yourself so hard in the morning. It's dangerous." "I exercise because I'm old," the man sighed. "If I stop moving, these old bones will rust solid." "Your logic is sound, but your method is flawed." The old man looked up, intrigued. "That massage was quite impressive. Do you study medicine?" "I've studied since I was a child," Xiao Yifeng said, his voice brimming with confidence. "I won't claim to be the best in the world, but I'm certainly a close second." He wasn't bragging in his own mind. His master was the undisputed number one, and as his sole heir, Xiao Yifeng believed he held nearly 90% of that legacy. "In that case, perhaps you can give me some advice. How should I be exercising?" "I'll teach you a set of movements called the Juduan Jin. It's perfect for your constitution. The old man's eyes widened. I've heard of the 8 brocades, the baju and jin, but never the 9. It's an improvement on the traditional form. It's 5 times more effective for longevity. Xiao Yifeng stood up and cleared a space on the grass. Watch closely. I'll show you. He began to move. It was a slow, deliberate exercise, appearing similar to standard morning calisthenics on the surface. However, because Xiao Yifeng performed it with his internal qi, his movements carried a strange, hypnotic grace. He seemed to glide through the air, his presence commanding and serene. The old man watched in stunned silence. Any doubts he had vanished. This boy was no ordinary student. He was a master. When the routine finished, Xiao Yifeng exhaled slowly and turned back. Did you catch all of that? I'm afraid I'm a slow learner, the man said, looking ashamed. I only remembered about half. Half isn't bad for a first look, but I have to report to school now. I can't stay to coach you. Mizusawa Middle School? Is that where you're headed? Xiao Yifeng nodded. That's the one. My granddaughter is a student there, the old man said with a smile. She's roughly your age. Perhaps your paths will cross. What's her name? Her surname is Mu. Mu Zhaozhao. My name is Mu Cong. Xiao Yifeng froze. Mu Zhaozhao? That was the eldest Mrs. inseparable best friend. He realized with a jolt that he was speaking to the patriarch of the Mu family. Mr. Mu, I think we are destined to meet, Xiao Yifeng said, his tone suddenly much more eager. I can meet you back here this afternoon to finish the lesson. Do you have time? Mu Kong looked conflicted. I've reached a rare age, and today happens to be my birthday. I'm afraid my family has plans. Then I'll come to you. That would be wonderful, Mu Kong agreed, beaming. Xiao Yifeng felt a surge of triumph. A birthday party for Mu Kong meant Mu Zhaozhao would be there, and if the families were close, Qin Yunhan would surely attend. If he arrived and displayed his medical skills in front of the elite of the city, he would finally earn the respect and admiration of the eldest miss. This was his perfect stage. Chapter 80. Stopping the slap. Morning classes were still an hour away. Qin Yunhan splashed cold water on her face, finishing her morning routine before turning toward her roommate. Sister Yunhan, what do you think of my calligraphy? Mu Zhaozhao carefully spread a long, ivory sheet of paper across the desk. The brushwork was delicate, flowing with traditional characters for blessing and longevity. She had stayed up until the early hours of the morning, practicing. This single sheet was the survivor of 30 attempts, the one she deemed perfect. If Grandpa Mu knew you only slept 2 hours just to write this for him, he'd be smiling from ear to ear, Qin Yunhan said, leaning over to inspect the ink. He won't care about the brush strokes. He'll care about the effort. It matters to me. My grandfather is a master calligrapher. He's the one who taught me. If I present him with something sloppy, it's a reflection on his teaching. Qin Yunhan let out a playful snort. I don't know the first thing about calligraphy. To be honest, they all look the same to me. They're all pretty. Forget I asked. I'm choosing this one. Zhaozhao dismissed her friend's lack of artistic eye and carefully rolled the scroll into a protective tube. She grabbed her keys and moved toward the door. Let's go. We can grab a quick breakfast before class starts. Qin Yunhan stepped out into the hallway, waving a hand dismissively. Don't bother with breakfast. Let's save our appetite for the birthday banquet tonight. Mu Zhaozhao's grandfather is celebrating his birthday today. Wang Haoran leaned back as the conversation filtered through his earpiece. The bug he'd placed was paying dividends. He knew how these stories went. In the world of urban novels, places like KTVs, bars, and birthday banquets were high-traffic zones for a protagonist to stage a dramatic face-slapping event. Mu Kong was a perfect supporting character for such a scene. With both Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao present, the drama was almost guaranteed. Haoran pulled out his phone and dialed his father. My boy, are you short on cash? Just give me the word and I'll transfer whatever you need. Wang Xiang shouted into the phone. It's not about money, Dad. I have a question. Do you know Mu Kong? Did that old man offend you? He's just a calligrapher. If he's being arrogant, he's looking for trouble. Just say the word, and I'll handle him. Wang Haoran rubbed his temples. His father's jump to aggression was impressive, if a bit predictable. He didn't offend me. I know it's his birthday today, and I'd like to attend. I was wondering if you had a connection so I could go in your name. Oh, well, a business associate of mine buys art from him. I've tagged along to his studio a few times. I can make it happen. Good. Prepare a gift. Also, I want you to send a top-tier medical team and a full security detail to the banquet. I get the gift and the guards, but why a medical team? Don't worry about the details. Just make sure they're the best. If anyone asks, Say it's for your own personal health and safety. Consider it done. The morning classes flew by in a blur of lectures and note-taking. When the final bell rang, Wang Haoran took his time packing his bag before walking toward the school gates. He timed his pace perfectly to run into Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao. Hey, Wang Haoran, heading out for lunch? Qin Yunhan called out. Actually, my father is attending a birthday banquet for a famous calligrapher. He wants me to join him and meet the man, Haoran replied smoothly. Mu Zhaozhao's eyes lit up. Wait, is this calligrapher's surname Mu? Yes. How did you know? Haoran feigned a look of mild surprise. That's my grandfather. He's hosting his banquet at the Zhaozhao Hotel today. What a coincidence. I actually ran into your grandfather yesterday, though I didn't realize he was a celebrity in the art world. Haoran smiled warmly at both girls. Since we're all going to the same place, why don't we go together? The kidnappers who had targeted Qin Yunhan were still at large. Haoran knew they would likely strike again soon. Protecting her at the banquet would be another easy way to harvest favorability points. Sounds great, Qin Yunhan agreed. The three of them climbed into the Cullinan and headed for the hotel. As they drove, Haoran used his perspective vision to scan the surrounding traffic, looking for suspicious vehicles or tailing cars. By the time they pulled up to the Zhaozhao Hotel, the coast seemed clear. The hotel's first-floor banquet hall was draped in elegance. Guests were lining up, handing gilded invitation cards to the greeters at the door. Wang Haoran and the girls didn't have cards, but the staff recognized the two heiresses immediately and ushered them through with deep bows. The greeters also knew who Wang Haoran was. Wang Xiang had already made the necessary calls. No one was going to stop the heir of the Wang group. They had barely stepped inside the hall when a loud, grating argument broke out at the entrance. Where did this middle school kid come from? You think this is a soup kitchen? I am a guest invited by Mr. Mu himself, a voice barked back. A guest? Where's your invitation? I don't have one. Then get lost. You're blocking the path for distinguished guests. If you bump into someone important, you won't be able to pay for the damage. You snobbish dog. Are you sure you won't let me in? Don't regret this. Go on, move. Stop bragging and get out of the way. Fine. I'll stay right here. You'll see what happens in a few minutes. Wang Haoran turned back to see Xiao Yifeng standing at the door, his face flushed with righteous indignation. Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao stared in shock. What is that hillbilly doing here? Qin Yunhan hissed, her annoyance clear. Is he following us? He hasn't noticed us yet, Zhaozhao noted. It doesn't look like he's following. Whatever. He can't get in anyway. Let's go find your grandfather, Yunhan said, turning away. The girls walked further into the hall, but Wang Haoran stayed behind. He knew how this played out. The protagonist would wait, someone important would arrive and recognize him, and the greeter would be humiliated and fired. It was a classic trope, and Haoran wasn't about to let Xiao Yifeng have the satisfaction. He walked toward the door. I know this man, Haoran said to the greeter, his voice calm and authoritative. Let him in. The greeter's attitude transformed instantly. He bowed deeply to Haoran. Of course, young Master Wang. Right away. He stepped aside, no longer blocking Xiao Yifeng's path. Ding. The host has prevented the protagonist from slapping the snobbish greeter. 200 villain points awarded. Haoran tucked the reward away mentally. You want to play the hero in my line of sight? Not today. Chapter 81. This birthday gift cannot be accepted. Xiao Yifeng didn't feel a shred of relief as he stepped past the threshold. Instead, a dull, stifling annoyance pooled in his chest. That greeter had looked down on him like a stray dog. Xiao Yifeng had been savoring the mental image of the man's face when Mu Kong finally arrived to personally welcome him, a scene that would have allowed him to vent his pent-up rage through a satisfying public humiliation. But this stranger had blundered in and smoothed things over, ruining the build-up. It was a meddlesome, irritating gesture. Xiao Yifeng shot a sharp glance at Wang Haoran, his eyes devoid of gratitude. Sensing the hostility, Haoran offered a secret, cold sneer. This was the classic protagonist temperament. Even a helping hand was perceived as an insult if it interfered with their theatrical display of ego. They were natural enemies, and Haoran accepted the role gladly. His goal was never to aid the boy, only to dismantle his stage. Ignoring Xiao Yifeng entirely, Haoran moved into the depths of the banquet hall. He eventually spotted his father, Wang Xiang, standing in a corner with a rigid posture and a sour expression. What's wrong, Dad? I'm the CEO of a listed company, a business tycoon worth tens of billions, Wang Xiang grumbled, his voice low and bitter. And yet, old man Mu treats me like a ghost. He didn't even invite me to the head table. You showed up unannounced, Haoran reminded him gently. The seating chart was likely finalized days ago. There just wasn't a spot reserved. So what? He could have made someone move. Are his other friends more honorable than a Wang? And what's your plan? I'm over it. Let's just leave. Wait until the party is over. I'll find a way to help you settle the score, Haoran said, keeping his voice steady. He had no intention of leaving before the main event. And how are you going to do that, son? Doesn't Mukong have a beautiful granddaughter? Haoran began spinning a thread of nonsense to keep his father anchored. I'll set my sights on her. I'll make her fall for me, have my fun, and then toss her aside. That should hurt the old man's pride. Wang Xiang's mood shifted instantly. He slapped his thigh and let out a bark of laughter. Good idea. That's my boy. I support you completely. Better yet, make sure her belly is nice and round before you abandon her. That'll really show old Mew. Keep it down. Haoran hissed, his face twitching. Right. SHH. Wang Xiang's grin remained wide. Did you bring the teams I asked for? They're here. The medical team is from Tinhui, 8 specialists ready for any emergency. I also have 10 armed security personnel stationed just outside the hall on standby. They're the best money can buy. On the other side of the room, Xiao Yifeng navigated the crowd. His school uniform stood out against the sea of silk and tailored suits, drawing curious, often judgmental looks from the guests. He ignored them with a practiced air of superiority until he spotted Mukong. The old man was deep in conversation with several dignitaries, but the moment he heard Xiao Yifeng's voice, he broke away. Old Master Mew, little friend, you made it. Mukong's face lit up, and he gestured toward a nearby table. I've reserved a guest seat right there for you. Please, make yourself comfortable. Mukong was eager to finish the banquet so he could discuss the Juduanjin movements in private. The surrounding guests whispered among themselves, stunned to see the prestigious calligrapher treat a disheveled teenager with such reverence. For a fleeting moment, Xiao Yifeng was the center of the room. Thank you, Mr. Mew. Xiao Yifeng tilted his chin up, casting a smug look around the hall. Wang Xiang and Wang Haoran approached the group next. Grandpa Mew, I wish you a long life, as vast as the eastern sea, and as enduring as the southern mountains, Haoran said, his tone perfectly polite. Wang Xiang remained silent, still nursing his bruised ego. Young man, it's you. Mukong was genuinely surprised. Why are you here? I came with my father. Haoran gestured toward the man beside him. And your father is? Wang Xiang. The Wang Xiang of the Wang Group? Mukong blinked. As a man of letters, he had little patience for the aggressive tactics of business moguls, which was why he had initially relegated the uninvited Wang Xiang to the back of the room. However, he hadn't realized the man was the father of the boy who had saved his granddaughter. He reconsidered his stance. If a man could raise a son with such self-sacrificing bravery, perhaps his character wasn't as profit-driven and cold as the rumors suggested. Mr. Wang, please forgive my earlier negligence, Mukong said, his tone softening significantly. I'll have a new seat opened at the front. I'll even offer a few toasts as an apology. Wang Xiang's expression thawed. He wanted to give the old man a piece of his mind, but remembering his son's instructions, he merely waved a hand. Haha, it's quite all right. Just then, Yunhan and Zhaozhao arrived, walking hand in hand. They offered their congratulations to the patriarch. Grandpa, I wrote this for you. Zhaozhao presented the scroll she had worked on all night. Mukong unrolled it and nodded with genuine pride. The characters captured the essence of his own style, showing a level of skill that far exceeded her usual work. He knew how much time she must have sacrificed during her exam prep to produce something this refined. He laughed, his joy radiating from his face. You have a good heart, Zhaozhao. I'm just glad you like it, Grandpa. She beamed, her youthful face looking incredibly bright. Xiao Yifeng watched from the periphery, feeling the spotlight slip away. Mr. Mew, I also have a birthday gift for you, he said, stepping forward. He hadn't forgotten the gift, a unique medicinal pill he had crafted using secret village techniques. It was designed to prolong life and revitalize the elderly, a treasure that no amount of money could purchase. He had waited for this exact moment, when the two girls and the elite of the city were watching, to reveal it. Little friend, I really can't accept a gift from you, Mukong said, waving him off. The exercise you taught me is already more than enough. I won't have you wasting your resources on me. Master Mew, I insist. Actually, I think you should take your gift back, Wang Haoran interrupted, stepping between them. He knew the script. In every one of those stories, the protagonist's modest gift turned out to be a miracle cure or an priceless relic that shocked the room. Haoran wasn't going to let him open that box. He intended to shut the performance down before the first act even began. Chapter 82. Talking about calligraphy. What business is it of yours what gift I give? Xiao Yifeng asked, casting a look of sharp displeasure toward Wang Haoran. We are all students. There is no need for such rigid formalities, Wang Haoran replied, his voice steady and calm. Qin Yunhan and I both arrived empty-handed. If you present a grand gift now, aren't you intentionally trying to make the rest of us look bad? He's right, Qin Yunhan added, stepping closer. It is one thing for Zhaozhao to bring a gift for her own grandfather, but you aren't exactly family. Why go to all this trouble? She looked at Xiao Yifeng with a dismissive shrug. As students with no personal income, any expensive gift would have been bought with parents' money, rendering the gesture hollow and devoid of true sincerity. Faced with the heiress's direct criticism, Xiao Yifeng felt the weight of the room shifting. He could easily ignore Wang Haoran, but defying Qin Yunhan was a different matter. If he insisted on presenting the pill now, he would be publicly contradicting the very woman he was trying to impress. Little friend, I appreciate the thought, Mu Kong said, stepping in to smooth over the tension. The fact that you would even think of an old man like me makes me happy enough. Please, take the gift back. Then, very well. Xiao Yifeng pulled the gift back, his fingers tightening around the small box. A bitter sense of grievance settled in his chest. He had planned this moment to secure the favor of both Yunhan and Zhaozhao, but pushing further would only ignite Yunhan's temper. Ding. The host has prevented the protagonist from showing off. 200 villain points awarded. Xiao Yifeng's protagonist Halo, -10. Host's villain Halo, +10. Wang Haoran felt the familiar rush of the system reward. The heavy doors at the back of the hall swung open again, as Qin Kai entered with a wide, practiced smile. He offered his congratulations to Mu Kong, and presented a polished birthday gift. The two men stood together, chatting comfortably. Their families had been close for years, and their business interests often aligned. After a few minutes, Qin Kai broke away from the patriarch and approached his daughter. How is the dormitory life treating you? He asked with a chuckle. It's wonderful, Qin Yunhan replied, lifting her chin defiantly. It is very comfortable. In fact, I plan to stay there until graduation. Qin Kai let out a soft laugh, not believing a word of it. He knew his daughter. She had been pampered since the day she was born. The idea of her surviving the Spartan conditions of a collective dormitory for years was a fantasy. It was only a matter of time before she came crawling back to the luxury of the villa. Master Mu's calligraphy is truly reaching new heights, a guest remarked nearby. Stunning work. I wouldn't be surprised if every word here was worth $1,000. Several of Mu Kong's recent pieces were displayed along the walls of the hall, drawing a crowd of admirers. He was a master of various styles, but his running script, agile and flowing, was what the critics respected most. Sister Yunhan, let's go take a closer look, Mu Zhaozhao suggested. Growing up under her grandfather's tutelage, she had a natural affinity for the art, even if her own practice had been hampered by a bit of youthful laziness. All right, Yunhan agreed. From a distance, the ink looked elegant and full of life, and she found herself genuinely curious. Xiao Yifeng followed them immediately. He couldn't care less about ink on paper, but he wasn't about to let the two girls out of his sight. As they leaned in to admire the brushwork, whispering words of praise, he moved in to join the conversation. The handwriting is excellent, he interjected. He truly deserves the title of master. You. Qin Yunhan looked him up and down with open contempt. You haven't even finished a proper education. Do you even know what you're looking at? I may not have spent years in a classroom, but I can write, Xiao Yifeng boasted, his voice rising slightly. In fact, I believe I write quite well. I'll believe that when I see it, she pouted. Mu Kong, who had been hovering nearby, overheard the exchange and walked over. Little friend, do you practice calligraphy? I do, Xiao Yifeng said with a confident nod. However, my calligraphy is not performed with a pen. I write with a sword. He knew he couldn't compete with Mu Kong's traditional brushwork, so he reached for a more theatrical display. He had spent years honing his martial arts until the sword was an extension of his own arm. Combining his blade with the written word was a stunt that never failed to amaze. Oh, Mu Kong's interest was piqued. He knew many calligraphers who used unconventional tools, but a sword was a new one. I would be very interested to see that. Mr. Mu, I have one request. I need a sword. Something heavy, at least 30 pounds. The heavier the better. A sword of that weight would be nearly impossible for a normal person to lift, let alone wield with the precision required for art. Xiao Yifeng wanted to ensure the difficulty was visible to everyone. I can arrange that, Mu Kong started to say, his excitement building. Today is a celebration of life, Grandpa Mu, Wang Haoran interrupted smoothly. It is a joyous day. Bringing out weapons and dancing with a sword seems like a poor omen for a birthday. Mukong hesitated. As he grew older, he had become more attuned to tradition and superstition. The idea of cold steel being brandished at his banquet suddenly felt like a breach of etiquette. It is just a demonstration of xill, not a duel, Xiao Yifeng argued, his eyes flashing with frustration at Wang Haoran. There is nothing unlucky about it. It isn't your grandfather's birthday, so of course you don't care, Yunhan snapped, siding with Haoran. Grandpa, I don't think it's appropriate either, Zhaozhao added softly, her concern for the old man winning out over her curiosity. Let's forget the sword. If he really wants to show us, a pen works just as well. Mukong patted his granddaughter's hand. You're right, Zhaozhao. He turned back to Xiao Yifeng. Perhaps you could demonstrate with a brush instead? I am used to the weight of a sword, Xiao Yifeng grumbled, looking away. I can't find the right feeling with a pen. Let's just drop it. He shot another dark look at Wang Haoran. Ding. The host has stopped the protagonist from showing off. 200 villain points awarded. Xiao Yifeng's protagonist Halo, -10. Host's villain Halo +10. Wang Haoran stepped forward, glancing at the masterpieces surrounding them. Grandpa Mu's work is incredible. It carries the weight of history, while maintaining a modern vitality. Do you understand the art, young man? Mukong asked. In the presence of a master, I wouldn't dare claim I understand it fully, Wang Haoran said with a modest bow. However, I have dabbled. I have spent years studying the 4 masters of regular script and the masters of the Song dynasty. I've copied their works no less than 1,000 times, trying to capture even a fraction of their essence. Chapter 83. Shocking the audience. Haha, Haoran is a bit arrogant to say that. Mukong chuckled. The older man clearly didn't believe a word of it. Disdain flickered in his eyes, brief but sharp. Calligraphy was easy enough to learn, yet nearly impossible to master. In a modern society where ballpoint pens ruled the day, the delicate, demanding brush felt like a relic. How could a boy like this adapt? Mukong wasn't the only skeptic. Qin Yunhan, Mu Zhaozhao, and the other guests looked at Wang Haoran with open suspicion. The only person in the room who seemed to believe was Wang Xiang. His trust wasn't based on logic or artistic merit, he simply felt his son was a natural-born conqueror. Are the 4 treasures of the study available? Wang Haoran asked. He noted Mukong's expression but didn't argue. His tone remained neat and focused. I keep them prepared wherever I go, Mukong replied. At his signal, attendants fetched a brush, ink, paper, and an inkstone. They cleared a large table in the center of the banquet hall and smoothed out a fresh sheet of paper. The guests pressed inward, forming a tight circle of curious eyes centered on the young man. The tools were ready, but the ink remained solid. Wang Haoran walked over to Mu Zhaozhao, a sunny smile brightening his face. Could you help me grind the ink with your slender hands? Ink grinding was a technical task, a meditation in itself. Mukong was certainly a master of the craft, but it felt condescending to ask the elder to perform such a service. Mu Zhaozhao, having studied the art since childhood, was the perfect choice. But oh, all right. She was friendly toward Wang Haoran and agreed to the request without hesitation. The rhythmic sound of the inkstone filled the quiet room. Before long, a dark, glossy pool was ready. Wang Haoran dipped the brush, the bristles soaking up the black liquid, and immediately set the tip to paper. The brush moved like a dragon dancing with a snake. Elegant, flexible characters began to bloom across the white surface. Those standing closest could read the lines as they formed in the 9th year of Yanghe. The age is in Guizhou, and at the beginning of the late spring, we meet in the landing pavilion of Shenyang in Kuiji to perform the ritual of purification. The group of sages has arrived, and the younger ones have gathered together. The 32-forward article was finished in what felt like a heartbeat. Wang Haoran did not stop. He reached for a new sheet. While the first had been a perfect running script, his hand now shifted into the wild, fluid motions of cursive. A few minutes later, that too was complete. He took a 3rd sheet. Another style emerged entirely. The crowd stood silent, mesmerized by the hypnotic movement of his hand. Time seemed to lose its meaning. Half an hour passed before Wang Haoran finally lifted the brush from the final character of the final piece. The ink stopped. Dozens of wide sheets lay across the floor and tables. Each one displayed a different style of exquisite calligraphy. For a man with master-level copying skills, recreating these famous works was effortless. Mukong scanned the papers, his voice cracking with shock. Wang Zizi's landing preface. Wang Sun's 36 methods. Yan Jinking's Meigu Immortal Tanji. Wai Su's self-narrative post. Lu Gongken's Madame Su's epitaph. Sushi's Black Cloud Poste. These were more than just texts to Mukong, they were masterpieces he had spent a lifetime studying. He had begun his own journey by imitating these very masters before carving out his own path. Wang Haoran's work wasn't just similar, it captured the very soul and verve of the originals. If these were placed side by side with the ancient scrolls, Mukong knew he might not be able to tell the difference. How could one person imitate so many masters with such terrifying precision? It was incredible. The surrounding guests were stunned. Those with a passing knowledge of the art recognized the genius on display. Praise began to ripple through the hall, growing into a roar of approval. Wang Xiang's chest swelled with pride. He couldn't help but shout over the din. "That's my son. That's my boy." Wang Haoran ignored the noise. He kept his eyes on Mukong. Wang Zizi, the master of running script. Huaisu, the master of cursive. Liang Sun, Yan Zhenqing, Lu Gongquan, the four masters of regular calligraphy. Zhao Minfu, Sishi, Wang Tingjian, Mi Fu, and Cai Xiang. "Tell me, Grandpa Mu, is my level all right?" "Haoran, I never imagined you possessed such an accomplishment," Mukong exclaimed, his voice full of genuine admiration. "I was clumsy and old. I underestimated you." Wang Haoran knew there were minor flaws. He had seen these works before, but had never actually copied them until this moment. With a bit of practice, he could produce true forgeries. But even with the slight imperfections, the impact on Mukong was total. "It was mostly the beauty polishing the ink," Wang Haoran said. He cast a sultry look toward Mu Zhaozhao, his peach blossom eyes glinting with mischief. "She made me perform exceptionally well. Usually, I don't write nearly this well." The guests turned their gaze toward Mu Zhaozhao. Under the weight of 100 eyes, her cheeks flushed a deep, inadvertent red. A chime sounded in Wang Haoran's mind. Mu Zhaozhao's favorability has increased by 10. Current total 30. Very friendly. Another prompt followed. The host has influenced the direction of the plot. 200 villain points rewarded. Even if your skill dropped a level, it would still be powerful, Mukong praised, his eyes drifting back to the calligraphy. One piece in particular made him pause. "Haoran, this last one. I don't recognize the ancient master you copied here. Can't you tell?" Wang Haoran smiled. "I was copying you." Mukong recognized his own style, of course, but he had needed to hear the confirmation. He looked at the sheet and sighed. "You've put my work alongside the greatest masters in history. You think too much of me." "Not at all," Wang Haoran said, his voice turning stern and serious. "You are a contemporary master. Your works are excellent. In the years to come, you will be famous for the ages, standing on equal footing with the greats of the Song dynasty." Every cell in Mukong's body seemed to vibrate with refreshment. As a calligrapher, his greatest desire was for his work to survive him, to be cherished by future generations. Wang Haoran's words were the ultimate tonic. He fought the urge to embrace the boy. After his excitement cooled, he looked at Wang Haoran tentatively. "You are so skilled at copying, and you have clearly put in the hard work. I wonder, do you wish to become even more sophisticated in this art?" Wang Haoran realized Mukong was looking for a disciple. He had no interest in being tied down to an inkstone. He declined with a polite bow. "Calligraphy is just a hobby, Grandpa Mu. I don't plan to spend the energy required to make it my future." Chapter 84. Save people or let professionals come. Mukong understood Wang Haoran's reasoning perfectly. In his mind, the boy had a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate to inherit. With so much responsibility looming in the future, it was only natural not to choose a life dedicated to the brush. Still, the old man couldn't quite suppress his obsession with the boy. He had other apprentices, of course, but none were truly outstanding. It had always been his great regret. Now that he had found this piece of unpolished jade, he was unwilling to let go. Mukong caught an idea and gently pulled Mu Zhaozhao to the side. "Haoran, Zhaozhao is also deeply interested in calligraphy. Since you're both young, I'm sure you'll have plenty to talk about. You two should stay in touch." "Grandpa," Mu Zhaozhao protested, her face heating up. She felt as though she were being sold off. Of course, Wang Haoran agreed smoothly, hiding his amusement. "When I have time, I will definitely ask Zhaozhao for her advice." "My level is very average," Mu Zhaozhao admitted, her earlier annoyance replaced by genuine admiration for his skill. "I should be the one asking you for guidance." "We can certainly arrange that." Wang Haoran smiled, letting his eyes linger on her for a second longer than necessary. "I might not have time to teach you ink strokes," he thought privately, "but I'm very free to teach you a few other things." "You're actually okay, Wang Haoran," Yunhan chimed in, her voice carrying a rare note of praise. "I didn't expect your calligraphy to be this good. I know a lot of things." "Really? Then tell me, what else are you hiding?" Yunhan asked. Between his ability to drop a group of gangsters with his fists and this breathtaking display of art, she found herself increasingly curious. She wanted to peel back the layers of the boy standing in front of her. Well, if you stay with me long enough, you'll find out slowly. Humph. Forget it then, she snorted, though she didn't look away. Off to the side, Xiao Yifeng's blood boiled. Watching Wang Haoran soak up the limelight was agonizing. Seeing Mu Zhaozhao look at him with such humility, and watching Qin Yunhan flirt so openly, sparked a deep, visceral hatred. This rich brat actually dares to compete with me for these women? He's tired of living, Xiao Yifeng snarled internally. He began to plot a way to teach the boy a lesson. Something that would keep him far away from the girls in the future. Just then, a hotel manager hurried to Mu Kong's side and whispered into his ear. The banquet is about to begin, Mu Kong announced to the room. Please, take your seats. The guests began to move toward the tables. Concerned that the masterpieces scattered on the floor might be stepped on, Mu Kong bent over to begin gathering the papers. He had only managed to pick up 3, when his head suddenly lolled to the side. He collapsed directly onto the carpet. Grandpa! Mu Zhaozhao shrieked, rushing to his side. The hall fell into a panicked silence before people surged forward to help. Mu Kong lay unconscious, his face pale. No matter how many times Zhaozhao called his name, he didn't stir. Tears began to track through her makeup. Someone called for an ambulance, but everyone knew the emergency teams wouldn't navigate the city traffic in time to make a difference here. Wang Haoran watched the chaos, a sense of grim realization settling in. He had stolen the spotlight for too long, leaving Xiao Yifeng with no sense of presence. Now, the narrative was forcing a comeback. Mu Kong's sudden illness was the perfect stage for the protagonist to display his miraculous medical skills. Get out of the way. Let me through. Xiao Yifeng's voice cut through the murmurs. He shoved his way through the crowd until he reached the old man. Mu Zhaozhao, don't worry. I can save him, Xiao Yifeng said, his voice brimming with confidence. You know medicine? Zhaozhao looked up, her eyes wide and red-rimmed. I do. He gave her a firm, reassuring nod. With me here, your grandfather will be just fine. Relief flooded Mu Zhaozhao's face. She started to shuffle back to give him space. You say you know medicine. Wang Haoran's voice rang out, sharp and skeptical. But tell us, do you have a medical license? Xiao Yifeng's brow furrowed. I don't have one, and I don't need one. Wang Haoran turned instantly to Mu Zhaozhao. Did you hear that? He's our age and he has no license. Are you really going to let him gamble with your grandfather's life? This might be a minor issue now, but if he starts poking and prodding without knowing what he's doing, he could cause permanent damage. Do you want to regret this for the rest of your life? The logic pierced through Zhaozhao's panic. She froze. No. I can't let you do it. If you hurt him, how could you ever make it right? Your grandfather is in danger right now, Xiao Yifeng shouted, desperate to regain control of the scene. If you don't let me treat him, his life is at risk. I promise you, if I fail, I'll give you my own life in exchange. Mu Zhaozhao wavered, looking between the two boys. Zhaozhao, look. The professional emergency doctors are here, Wang Haoran said, pointing toward the entrance. Haoran could have healed the old man himself using his poison mastery, but the methods were dark and strange. He didn't want to reveal that card in front of a crowd. More importantly, it was a secret weapon he intended to use against Xiao Yifeng later. He preferred the boy to remain ignorant of his true capabilities. Where? Zhaozhao asked. Wang Haoran looked over at his father. Dad, where's the medical team? Waiting right outside. I'll call them in. Wang Xiang pulled his phone out and barked an order. Seconds later, a group of doctors in crisp white coats, carrying professional first aid kits and monitors, sprinted into the hall. They moved with the unmistakable rhythm of a veteran team. Emblazoned on their coats was the name Tianwei. The wealthier guests whispered in recognition. The Tianwei Clinic represented the pinnacle of private medical care in the city. The crowd parted automatically. Seeing the professionals arrive, Mu Zhaozhao scrambled out of the way. Xiao Yifeng stood frozen, staring in disbelief, before several guests rudely shouldered him aside to make room for the equipment. Ding! The host has prevented the protagonist from showing off. 300 villain points awarded. Xiao Yifeng's protagonist Halo, -15. Host's villain Halo, +15. Wang Haoran allowed a small, satisfied smile to play on his lips. Xiao Yifeng's hero moments typically relied on either his fists or his miraculous medicine. By bringing a top-tier security team and a medical team, Haoran had effectively neutralized both paths. The doctors worked with clinical efficiency. They checked Mu Kong's heart with a stethoscope, peeled back his eyelids to check his pupils, and began stabilizing his vitals. In less than a minute, they had a diagnosis and began treatment. Moments later, Mukong's eyes fluttered open. He looked around at the circle of worried faces. What happened to me? Chapter 85. You are the broom star. Grandpa, you fainted while you were gathering the papers, Mu Zhaozhao said, her voice trembling with a lingering edge of panic as she knelt by his side. The lead emergency doctor stepped forward, his eyes scanning Mukong's vitals with professional detachment. Blood flow in the elderly is often compromised, and blood vessels lose their elasticity over time. Bending over so suddenly likely sent a rush of blood to the brain, causing acute shock. Without immediate intervention, this could have easily escalated into a stroke. You were lucky we were on site, though I strongly recommend a full hospital evaluation once the banquet concludes. Thank you, Mu Zhaozhao whispered, clutching her grandfather's hand. Thank you for saving him. We are professionals doing a job, the doctor replied, gesturing toward the back of the room. If you wish to offer gratitude, it belongs to President Wang. Zhaozhao turned her gaze toward Wang Xiang. Uncle Wang, thank you. Don't mention it, niece, Wang Xiang said, waving a hand dismissively while shooting a meaningful look at his son. I don't usually travel with a private medical trauma team. It was my son's idea to bring them today. If you really want to thank someone, thank Haoran. Mu Zhaozhao didn't find words, but she looked deeply at Wang Haoran, her moist eyes shimmering with a profound, quiet gratitude. Even from across the room, the intensity of her gaze was palpable. A familiar chime echoed in Haoran's mind. Ding. Mu Zhaozhao's favorability has increased by 10. Current total 40. Very friendly. Ding. The host has successfully altered the plot direction. 300 villain points awarded. Despite the doctor's warnings, Mukong was a stubborn man. With the medical team now standing guard in the hall, he insisted on finishing his birthday celebration before heading to the hospital. Zhaozhao tried to protest, but seeing his resolve, she eventually relented. The banquet resumed, though the atmosphere had shifted. At the head table, Mukong substituted tea for wine, raising his cup several times to honor Wang Xiang. The other dignitaries followed suit, their earlier indifference toward the Wang Group CEO evaporating into a cloud of flattery. Qin Kai, sitting nearby, remained composed. As a titan of industry himself, he didn't need to suck up to Wang Xiang, but he found himself increasingly fascinated by Wang Haoran. Between the calligraphy and the foresight to bring doctors, the boy was proving to be a riddle worth solving. Meanwhile, Xiao Yifeng sat at the same table like a ghost. Ignored by the elders and sidelined by the girls, he nursed his wine in bitter silence. He was the protagonist, yet he felt like he was sitting on the bench during the championship game. Suddenly, the piece shattered. Bang! A violent explosion of sound erupted from the hallway outside. The warm, festive atmosphere vanished instantly. The guests nearest the entrance scrambled from their chairs, their faces contorted in terror. The hall became a cacophony of scraping wood, crashing silverware, and high-pitched screams. Wang Haoran stiffened. Seriously? He thought, a wave of irritation washing over him. Mukong falling ill wasn't enough? Now this? He wanted to scream at the sky. The author of this world was clearly obsessed with forcing Xiao Yifeng into a hero's role. Logic be damned. This was a 5-star hotel with its own security, and yet gunmen were at the door. Bang, bang, bang. The noise intensified. It was the rhythmic, sharp report of a firefight. Haoran focused his perspective vision, peering through the heavy oak doors. Outside, 2 groups were locked in a stalemate. On one side stood the 10 bodyguards Wang Xiang had brought, professional, armed, and cold-blooded. On the other side was a gang of masked men. Haoran recognized 3 of them immediately. They were the same youths who had botched the kidnapping attempt on the commercial street. Apparently, they had traded their knives for hot weapons this time. Fortunately, the bodyguards were using the hotel's marble pillars as cover, trading shots with the attackers. It was a chaotic mess of lead and stone chips, but for now, the professionals were holding the line. The gangsters couldn't bridge the gap to the hall. Haoran felt a slight release of tension. If the bandits couldn't get inside, Xiao Yifeng wouldn't have a stage to perform on. But inside the hall, the guests knew nothing of the stalemate. They were trapped in a gilded cage, paralyzed by the sound of death at the door. Zhaozhao, what did we do to deserve this? Qin Yunhan's face was ashen, her voice trembling. First the fire, now this. It's like we're cursed. It's a run of bad luck, Zhaozhao whispered, her eyes darting toward the entrance. Qin Kai hurried to his daughter's side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders to offer whatever security he could. Miss, Uncle Qin, do not fear, Xiao Yifeng shouted, finally seeing his opening. He surged to his feet and stood before them. I will protect you. Nothing will happen as long as I am here. Qin Kai looked at the boy with a flicker of hope. He had seen Xiao Yifeng's fighting prowess before, and felt a genuine sense of trust. The last time you came to our school, there was a fire, Qin Yunhan snapped, her fear turning into sharp, redirected anger. This time, we're at a banquet and gunmen show up. You're not a bodyguard, you're a broom star. A jinx. How can you blame me for this? Xiao Yifeng looked wounded, his hands open in a gesture of innocence. She's right, Haoran thought. It is because of you. Wherever a protagonist goes, disaster follows just so they can play the savior. Every time I see you, something terrible happens, Yunhan continued, her voice rising. Stay away from me. You're annoying. I have to stay by your side to protect you, Xiao Yifeng insisted. The danger is out there, not here. Yunhan pointed toward the doors. If you really want to be useful, go guard the entrance and leave us in peace. Xiao Yifeng hesitated. Seeing the fury in the heiress's eyes, he decided to comply with her wishes. He grabbed a pair of heavy chopsticks from the table, intending to use them as lethal projectiles, and marched toward the banquet hall doors. With the protagonist safely tucked away at the entrance, Wang Haoran turned his attention back to the fight outside. Something didn't feel right. The gangsters were outmatched and outgunned. Why hadn't they fled? Why were they risking capture or death for a stalemate they couldn't win? Unless... A chilling realization struck him. They weren't trying to get in. They were waiting for something else. Chapter 86. Prince and Princess. Wang Haoran pulled his attention from the chaos outside the doors. His perspective vision swept the area around Qin Yunhan, scanning for hidden threats that the chaotic crowd had missed. A male waiter carrying a large dinner plate moved through the throng. He drifted toward Qin Yunhan with practiced, inadvertent ease. A heavy dark cloth covered the plate, masking its contents from the panicked guests. But the cloth offered no protection against Haoran's gaze. He saw the cold, metallic shape hidden beneath the fabric. The waiter reached the girl's side, his hand creeping toward the dark shroud. He never finished the motion. Wang Haoran snatched a heavy wine bottle from a nearby table. With lightning speed, he launched it. A sharp crack echoed through the hall, followed by a muffled scream. The waiter collapsed to the carpet, clutching his shattered head. The surrounding guests jumped, their faces a mask of dazed confusion. To them, it looked as though Wang Haoran had simply attacked a servant without provocation. The confusion died instantly as the dinner plate hit the floor. The impact sent the dark cloth fluttering away, exposing a black handgun. The weapon slid across the polished wood, coming to rest in the light. The downed bandit groaned, his hands pinned to his skull, as he lost the will to fight. Just to be safe, Haoran stepped forward and kicked the pistol across the room, well out of reach. Qin Kai, his nerves raw and sensitive, reacted immediately. He realized in a heartbeat that this was another attempt to snatch his daughter. Dad, this is... Qin Yunhan started, her voice small and frightened. Now do you understand why I wanted a bodyguard for you? Qin Kai asked. His voice was solemn, his eyes fixed on the fallen man. Yunhan felt a cold shiver of lingering fear. If it hadn't been for Wang Haoran, she would be a hostage right now, a barrel pressed against her temple. He had saved her from the fire, and now he had saved her from the shadows. In the stories of her childhood, the prince always appeared at the exact moment the princess fell into peril. Looking at Wang Haoran, with his perfect composure and his family's vast influence, she didn't see a classmate. She saw her prince. She couldn't stop herself from staring at him, her heart thumping a frantic, new rhythm. Ding. The host has intercepted the protagonist's role and prevented the kidnapping. 400 villain points awarded. Xiao Yifeng's protagonist Halo, -20. Host's villain Halo, +20. Ding. Qin Yunhan's favorability has increased by 10. Current total, 55. Love from the heart. Ding. The host has greatly influenced the plot direction. 600 villain points awarded. Xiao Yifeng's protagonist Halo, -30. Host's villain Halo, +30. The three system messages chimed in rapid succession. Haoran felt like he could fly. 1,000 points and 50 points of aura were incredible, but the qualitative shift in Yunhan's feelings was the real prize. This made his upcoming moves against Xiao Yifeng much easier. Haoran, thank God you were fast enough to act, Qin Kai said, his voice thick with gratitude. If you hadn't seen him, the tragedy would be unthinkable. Xiao Yifeng came running over at that moment, his face flushed with exertion. Seeing the threat was already neutralized, he did the only thing left to do. He slammed his heel into the fallen waiter's arm, dislocating the joint to ensure the man couldn't resist. Miss, are you all right? Xiao Yifeng asked, his breath coming in short gasps. The danger is already over, and now you decide to intervene. Yunhan asked, her voice dripping with contempt. What kind of bodyguard are you? You ordered me to guard the door just now, Xiao Yifeng defended himself. If you had kept me by your side, he would have been face down on the floor before he got within 3 meters of you. Are you blaming me? Yunhan snapped. She was used to being willful, and she had no intention of losing an argument. I told you to guard the door, so you went. If I told you to go die, would you do that too? Xiao Yifeng stood there, speechless and stung. Outside the hall, the sounds of gunfire began to fade. Supplies were limited on both sides. In a stalemate of attrition, the side that ran out of lead first was finished. 7 gangsters crouched behind the massive marble pillars of the hotel lobby. Among them were the 3 youths who had failed in the commercial street, 1 tall, 1 short, and 1 with a pockmarked face. Damn it! Why are there so many bodyguards? Maisie, the pockmarked youth, growled. And they're all packing heat. Qin Kai must have brought them, the tall one replied, his voice tight with surprise. The man is more prepared than we thought. What do we do now? The short one whispered, his hands shaking as he fumbled with a magazine. I blame you. If you hadn't exposed your weapon early, the bodyguards wouldn't have flagged us. Maisie hissed. Stop the bickering, the tall leader commanded. Xiao Meng hasn't come out of the hall. He's either caught or dead. We aren't waiting any longer. We need to move. The crew unleashed a final, desperate volley of suppressive fire, using the noise to cover their retreat. The bodyguards didn't pursue. Their priority was the safety of their employers, not a running gunfight in the streets. A police whistle pierced the air. The sirens split up. The leader shouted. The gangsters scrambled into 2 vehicles, a black van and a white one, and sped off in opposite directions. Su Zheng led the police response, screeching onto the scene. I'll take the black van. Xiaolin, stay on the white one. Su Zheng barked into his radio. Xiaoling, get into the banquet hall. Check for hostages. Their safety is the top priority. Ling Duanya, looking valiant and sharp in her uniform, led her colleagues as they rushed into the hotel. They burst into the banquet hall, weapons drawn and eyes scanning for threats. They found no gunman holding the crowd. The only attacker was already pinned to the floor. Ling Duanya lowered her guard, signaling her team to begin taking statements from the bodyguards and guests. As she gathered the details, her eyes fell on Xiao Yifeng. She frowned. He had crippled the waiter after the man was already down. In her view, it was extreme and unnecessary. Even bandits had rights, and breaking the bones of a submissive suspect was a line she didn't like to see crossed. She knew he had Qin Kai's backing, which meant the legal fallout would be non-existent, but she found him increasingly distasteful. She turned her back on him, her gaze landing on Wang Haoran. There was a look of genuine amazement and admiration in her eyes as she approached him. Ding. Ling Duanya's favorability has increased by 5. Current total 25. Very friendly. Ding. The host has influenced the direction of the plot. 100 villain points awarded. Chapter 87. Threatening letters and blue porcelain. Ling Duanya was in the middle of her duties, making it difficult to speak privately with Wang Haoran, but she caught his eye. Her expression was soft, a silent gesture of gratitude and kinship. Haoran offered a slight, subtle nod in return, acknowledging the connection without drawing the room's attention. Suddenly, Ling Duanya's phone vibrated in her palm. A message from Captain Su Zheng flashed on the screen. The suspects in the black van were in custody, though the white van had managed to vanish into the city traffic. Pack it up, Ling Duanya commanded her colleagues. They began to gather their equipment, ready to withdraw from the hotel. Officer, please stay a moment. Qin Kai stepped into Ling Dunya's path, his voice carrying the authority of a man used to being heard. Ling Dunya stopped, her expression cooling slightly. She still felt a lingering irritation over Qin Kai's insistence on bailing Xiao Yifeng out of trouble in the past. Is there something else, Mr. Qin? She asked. I need to know, have those gangsters been caught? I'm sorry, Ling Dunya replied firmly. Following protocol, I cannot disclose details of an active investigation to the public. Qin Kai was no stranger to reading between the lines. The officer's tone was defensive, not defeated, which told him most of the threat had been neutralized. He inclined his head. I understand. Truly. However, those men were clearly targeting my daughter. I might have information that could help you connect the dots. Ling Dunya's interest sharpened. If you're willing to cooperate, President Qin, we would certainly welcome the input. The billionaire nodded and prepared to follow her out, but a new voice stopped them both. Officer Ling, wait. Wang Haoran stepped forward, his eyes landing on his father, Wang Xiang. Those men might not be after Qin Yunhan alone. They could have ties to the Wang family. Dad, you should go with them. See if you can assist with the case. Wang Xiang looked at his son, bewildered. What does this have to do with us? A shadow of feigned sadness crossed Haoran's face. I didn't want to worry you, but I received a threatening letter a few days ago. It was a calculated lie. Haoran knew the kidnappers were strictly interested in the Qin family, but he had two goals. First, he wanted to distract Qin Kai. If the man became too paranoid, he would force Xiao Yifeng into a 24-hour guard position, which was the last thing Haoran wanted. Second, he needed his father to have ears inside the police station. If they could identify the mastermind behind the gang, Haoran could eliminate the threat at the source. Once the danger was gone, Xiao Yifeng's job as a bodyguard would become obsolete. Wang Xiang's face turned a violent shade of red. Which son of a bitch thinks they can touch my boy? They must have a death wish. He didn't doubt the story for a second. In the cutthroat world of high finance, enemies were a daily occurrence. Targeting a son to get to the father was a classic, albeit cowardly, move. Do you still have the letter? Ling Dunya asked, her professional instincts kicking in. We might be able to pull prints or trace the paper. I threw it away after I read it. Haoran lied smoothly. I didn't want to let it get to me. Ling Dunya sighed, regretting the lost evidence, but gestured for both fathers to follow her. The birthday banquet, once a scene of elegance, had disintegrated into an afternoon of unease. The guests dispersed quickly, eager to leave the scene of the violence behind. Later that afternoon, during a quiet moment in class, Wang Haoran's phone buzzed with a message from Fang Heng. It was a high-resolution photo of a stunning blue and white porcelain vase. Tang Dynasty blue and white porcelain, the text read. Are you interested? Clearly, Fang Heng's supernatural luck had led him to another hall. While Haoran wasn't an expert on antiques, he knew anything from the Tang Dynasty was essentially a winning lottery ticket. Of course I'm interested, Haoran typed back. Why turn down free money? Let's meet. You name the time and place. 6 o'clock this evening. The front gates of Mizusawa Middle School. See you there. Once the meeting was set, Haoran made another call. At the headquarters of the Gaoxi Tianxiang Corporation, Fang Suan was deep into her work. After a solid night's sleep, her focus was razor-sharp. She stood by the desk of the CEO, Zhen Li, handing over a thick folder. Mr. Zhen, this is the revised planning case for the new moisturizer line from the marketing department. Zhen Li flipped through the pages, her eyes narrow and discerning. It's an improvement over the last draft, she muttered, pointing to several bullet points. But these details still lack punch. Have the planners rework these sections. I'll see to it immediately, Fang Suan said, jotting down the notes. As she waited for further instructions, her phone chimed. When she saw the caller ID, her heart skipped a beat. Mr. Zhen, may I step out for a moment? It's a private call. Zhen Li frowned, her voice stern. Personal calls on your first day? That's quite the habit to start, Fang Suan. Fang Suan hesitated, then leaned in. It's from your son. Zhen Li's face transformed instantly. The cold, corporate mask melted into a warm, indulgent smile. Oh, well, go on then. Don't worry about the work, go talk to him. Thank you, Mr. Zhen. Fang Suan ducked out of the office and pressed the phone to her ear. Your brother found something new, Haoran said without preamble. I'm meeting him at the school gates for the trade. I'll have to ask President Zhen for leave, Fang Suan whispered, glancing at the office door. I'm not sure she'll let me go again so soon. If she says no, tell her I asked for you. That would probably work, Fang Suan admitted. She knew exactly how much Zhen Li doted on her boy. 6 o'clock, Haoran confirmed. But listen, don't let your brother get suspicious. Don't let him think you're there for me. Pretend you're on company business and just happen to be passing by the school. I can do that. I'll say I'm running an errand for the firm. Good. And one more thing, Haoran added. Stop at a 5-star hotel on your way. Pack a proper dinner and bring it with you. Between the shooting and the chaos at Mukong's banquet, he'd barely eaten a bite. By now, his stomach was growling. Sure. What do you feel like eating? Surprise me. I'll transfer the funds now. He hung up, and seconds later, Fang Suan's phone chimed with a WeChat notification. A transfer for 30,000 yuan sat in her inbox. She stared at the screen, stunned. Is this how the rich live? She wondered. 30,000 for a single dinner? Chapter 88. The Black Peony and the Porcelain Trade. After ending the call with Fang Suan, Wang Haoran dialed his father. He needed to confirm the details of the investigation, while the trail was still warm. What's the situation, Dad? Who were those gunmen after? Haoran asked, his voice a mask of innocent curiosity. They weren't coming for us, Wang Xiang replied. They were aimed at Qin Kai. Their plan was to kidnap Qin Yunhan. I see. Haoran feigned a sharp breath of surprise. And did they find out who hired them? Not exactly. The gunmen never met the mastermind. They were hired through an intermediary and handled all their communications online. The trail is mostly cold. Haoran sighed, leaning back against the cool bricks of the school building. So, no leads at all. I wouldn't say that. Even though they never met the boss, the gunman knew their contact went by the nickname Eagle. Our sources at the bureau linked Eagle directly to a woman named Black Peony. Black Peony? Who is she? A woman more ruthless than most men, Wang Xiang explained. She's a major player in the Qingling City underground. She handles everything from high-end clubs to less savory businesses. Where does she usually operate? She owns a place called the Black Peony Bar on 19th Street. She's almost always there after dark. Wang Xiang paused, his tone shifting to one of fatherly suspicion. Why the interest, son? Just curious, Haoran said vaguely. The afternoon bell rang, echoing through the courtyard and giving him the perfect exit. That's the bell. I have to get to class. Talk later, Dad. All right, stay safe. Haoran slipped his phone into his pocket and returned to his desk, his mind racing. If the kidnapping plot was linked to Black Peony, she was the key. Even if she wasn't the mastermind, a woman in her position would know exactly who was footing the bill. To solve Qin Kai's problem and strip Xiao Yifeng of his bodyguard duties, he needed to pay the lady a visit. It's time to head to the Black Peony Bar. The thought of walking into a lion's den made him open his system interface. If he was going into the underground, he needed more than just wits. He looked at his accumulated 3,200 villain points. With a few taps, he spent 3,000 points to exchange for 6 years of internal strength. A warm, violent surge of energy flooded his limbs, knitting into his muscles and sharpening his senses to a razor edge. Host Wang Haoran. Combat Strength 1099. Charm 268. Villain Halo 736. Villain Points 200. Skills Master Level Painting / Calligraphy Copying, Master Level Wing Chun, Song God Singing, Actor Level Acting, Perspective, Advanced Poisoning, Top Hacking, 18 years of internal merit. His combat power had broken the 1,000-point threshold. He felt light, coiled like a spring. Within 30 meters, even a man with a gun would struggle to track his movements. He was ready. As 6 o'clock approached, Haoran walked to the school gates. A ride-hailing car and a sleek Ferrari pulled up to the curb simultaneously. Fang Heng stepped out of the first car, while Fang Suan emerged from the supercar. Sister, why are you here? And where did you get a Ferrari? Fang Heng's jaw dropped. Fang Suan popped the front trunk, revealing several elegant takeaway boxes. My boss asked me to deliver dinner to her son. She let me take her car for the errand since it's faster. She turned a curious look toward her brother. What about you? What are you doing at the school gates? Fang Heng clutched a 2-foot-tall object wrapped in soft cloth close to his chest. I found another treasure. The student I told you about said he'd buy whatever I found, so I'm here for the trade. He shot a happy glance toward Wang Haoran. Fang Suan watched her brother's excitement and suppressed a heavy sigh, forcing a bright, supportive smile instead. Open it up, Haoran said. Fang Heng laid the soft cloth on the pavement to create a cushion before carefully placing a large vase on top. Haoran squatted down, pretending to study the glaze and the patterns with the intensity of a seasoned appraiser. After a long silence, he nodded. It looks like genuine Tang Dynasty blue and white porcelain. What's your price? I've consulted with some experts, Fang Heng said confidently. The market value for a piece this size is around 8 million. 8 million. Fang Suan's voice jumped an octave. She stared at the broken bottle, unable to fathom the price tag. Haoran remained calm. In his mind, he was celebrating the higher the price, the more profit he'd make when he eventually offloaded it. We're looking at a long-term partnership, Fang Heng. Do you think the full market price is fair for a regular buyer? He negotiated purely to keep up appearances. If he agreed too quickly, even a fool like Fang Heng might get suspicious. Make me an offer, Fang Heng replied after a moment of hesitation. 7.5 million. That's a $500,000 drop, Fang Heng countered. I can't go that low. I'll take 200,000 off the top. Let's meet in the middle. 7.7 million? Fang Heng went silent, calculating. Selling at market value could take months of finding the right auction or collector. A quick sale for 7.7 million was a massive win. Deal, he said, nodding. I'll transfer the funds now. Haoran pulled out his phone and began tapping. Minutes passed. He frowned at the screen, then looked up at Fang Heng. Is there something wrong with your account? The system says I can't move the money in. What? That's impossible. Fang Heng's face darkened with instant distrust. You aren't trying to scam me out of this vase, are you? Haoran let out a cold, sharp sneer. Ask your sister about my family's net worth. Do you really think I need to lie to you over a measly 7 million? Xiaoheng, maybe there is a block on your account, Fang Suan added, stepping in to smooth things over. It shouldn't be. I just withdrew money recently, Fang Heng muttered, his confusion growing. I have an idea, Haoran suggested, watching his trap snap shut. I'll try transferring the 7.7 million to your sister's account instead. You can sort it out with her later. Fang Heng didn't hesitate. Fine. Try her account. Chapter 89. The two school beauties are vinegar kings. Fang Heng's quick agreement prompted Haoran to tap his mobile screen. Within 10 minutes, 7.7 million yuan successfully credited to Fang Suan's account. Brother, look, the transfer went through. Fang Suan tilted her phone, showing Fang Heng the bank notification. Fang Heng exhaled, the last of his tension vanishing. He extended a hand toward Wang Haoran. Happy doing business with you. Likewise. Haoran shook the hand, a private laugh bubbling in his mind. Sister, your delivery is done, right? Let's head out together. Fang Heng cast a longing look at the Ferrari. The thought of riding in a supercar made his heart race. One day, he told himself, he would buy one of his own. You go ahead, Fang Suan countered, stepping away from the vehicle. I have a few more things to settle for the company now that the meal is delivered. This car belonged to Zhenli. With Wang Haoran standing right there, she had no intention of letting her brother climb inside. If he accidentally scuffed the leather, or messed with the controls, Zhenli would make her life a living hell. Fair enough. I'll just catch a cab. Fang Heng didn't push. He flagged down a passing taxi, and was soon gone from sight. I'll head to the bank nearby and transfer this back to you, Fang Suan said. Her voice carried a nervous tremor. Her account was a standard personal one. No high-speed processing, or VIP perks. Moving a sum this large usually required a 24-hour hold. Carrying 7 million yuan in her pocket, even digitally, made her skin crawl. She wanted it gone. Wait a bit. I'll go with you after I eat. What? Are you really going to complain about waiting here a few minutes? Haoran asked, his voice sharpening with feigned irritation. No, not at all. Fang Suan shook her head quickly. She knew where her paycheck came from. If she had to stand on the curb to keep the peace, she would. Stay with the vase. I've already called a driver to come pick it up. So, once the driver takes the porcelain, I can go. Of course not. Wait for me to come out. I still have things to tell you. Oh, understood. Haoran gathered the insulated food containers and headed for the classroom. He reached the door and found Yunhan leaning against the balcony railing, watching the students downstairs. What's in the boxes? She asked, her curiosity piqued. She had been waiting for him, moving to this specific spot the moment she saw him cross the courtyard. I wasn't in the mood for the cafeteria, Haoran explained. I had someone bring over a spread from the hotel. Have you eaten? You're welcome to join me. I haven't. I'd love to. Sister Yunhan, what are you doing here? Zhaozhao approached from the other end of the hall, her brow furrowed in confusion. The view is better from this balcony, Yunhan lied, not missing a beat. Is it? Zhaozhao stood beside her and peered down. It looked exactly like the view from their own classroom. Since neither of you has eaten, come inside, Haoran invited. But Sister Yunhan, didn't you just go to the cafeteria with me? Zhaozhao asked, her eyes wide. Yunhan turned bright red. She shot her friend a warning glare. I didn't get full. I want seconds. Is that a crime? I'm not full either, Zhaozhao added, rubbing her stomach. There's plenty for everyone, Haoran said. Inside the classroom, Haoran pushed several desks together to form a makeshift dining table. As he opened the containers, a rich, savory aroma filled the air. This is amazing. Yunhan and Zhaozhao stared at the spread. The dishes rivaled the birthday feast from earlier that afternoon. Haoran felt a flicker of surprise himself. He had given Fang Suan 30,000 yuan, expecting her to keep a healthy tip for the errand. Instead, she had spent every cent on the most luxurious menu available. The classroom door creaked open. Ding. The host has made Sumwian feel jealous. 200 villain points awarded. Haoran looked up. Sumwian stood at the entrance, her eyes fixed on the three of them. The Vinegar King has arrived, Haoran thought. Keep them coming. He pretended not to notice her and continued eating, chatting casually with the other two girls. He certainly has a way with women, Sumwian muttered under her breath. Wen Jing, walking beside her, chuckled. Is the class flower jealous? Wen Jing didn't share the sentiment. She found Haoran's popularity a testament to his charm. I am not jealous, Sumwian insisted, her voice stubborn. You're beautiful, but you aren't even at the table, Wen Jing whispered. Go over there. If you don't, the beauties from the other classes will steal our class prince right from under your nose. Sumwian stiffened. Wen Jing was right. Qin Yunhan and Mu Zhaozhao didn't even belong in this classroom. Why should she be the one feeling awkward? She smoothed her skirt and walked toward the desks. That smells delicious, Sun Lian said, flashing Haoran a sweet, practiced smile. Now I'm hungry all over again. Join us. Though, I think we're out of chopsticks. Fang Suan had only packed 3 sets. Sun Lian took a slow, steady breath. I've been craving the papaya stewed pork trotters. Would you feed me a bite? Haoran froze, a piece of pork halfway to his own mouth. He blinked, surprised by her boldness. Ah, sure. He lifted a piece of papaya and a bit of pork with his chopsticks and guided them to her mouth. Sun Lian chewed slowly, swallowing with a look of pure triumph. Delicious, she purred. I want more. Haoran watched her, stunned. This wasn't the shy, reserved Sun Lian he knew. She was being incredibly proactive in front of the entire class. The presence of the other 2 girls had clearly pushed her over the edge. Qin Yunhan's chopsticks hit her plate with a sharp clatter. You aren't even his girlfriend, she snapped at Sun Lian. Asking him to feed you like that? Have you no shame? Ding. The host has made Qin Yunhan feel jealous. 100 villain points awarded. Haoran smiled. A new vinegar king had been born. Chapter 90. Going to the bar. We may not be boyfriend and girlfriend, but we are very good friends. It is just a meal. Is there any reason for you to be so bothered? Sun Lian did not back down. She met Qin Yunhan's gaze with a sharp, defiant spark in her eyes. It isn't in my way at all, Qin Yunhan countered, her voice rising as she confronted the other girl. I just wanted to say something. Is that a crime? Then I will simply act as if I didn't hear a word. Sun Lian snorted lightly, turning back to Wang Haoran with a sweet, calculated smile. I want to eat more papaya. All right, here you go. Haoran used his chopsticks to place another delicate slice in her mouth. Qin Yunhan fell silent, her expression souring by the second. Ding. The host has made Qin Yunhan feel jealous. 100 villain points awarded. Sun Lian chewed slowly, her eyes brimming with triumph. Sister Yunhan, you really should eat more papaya yourself. It is the best thing for a growing body. The room went quiet for a long moment until Mu Zhaozhao suddenly leaned forward. Without a word of warning, she began piling large chunks of papaya into Qin Yunhan's bowl, her movements frantic as if trying to rescue the fruit before Sun Lian could finish it. Zhaozhao, if you have nothing intelligent to say, then keep your mouth shut, Qin Yunhan hissed, her face flushing a deep, angry red. Her own curves were not as pronounced as Sun Lian's, and while eating more fruit might help, having the fact broadcast in front of the entire class was humiliating. She had a reputation to maintain. I am quite full now, Sun Lian announced. She watched Qin Yunhan's discomfort with a hidden smirk, then turned a parting glance toward Haoran. I think I will leave the rest for those who are truly in need. Are you implying you're so much better? Why don't you compare yourself to her? Qin Yunhan stood abruptly, grabbing Mu Zhaozhao by the shoulders and shoving her friend toward Sun Lian. Mu Zhaozhao possessed a figure that most women couldn't hope to match. Compared to her, Sun Lian's frame was far more modest. I admit, I cannot compete with that, Sun Lian said, her voice dripping with mock humility. But I am perfectly happy with what I have. Having delivered her final jab, she walked back to join Wen Jing, her mood radiating satisfaction. Sister Yunhan, can I sit down now? Mu Zhaozhao asked, her mouth still full of food. Your legs work, don't they? If you want to sit, sit. Qin Yunhan stared at her best friend with utter exasperation. Sun Lian had just insulted her, and instead of helping, this brainless teammate had highlighted her insecurities. It was like playing a game with someone who kept scoring for the other side. Calm down, Sister Yunhan. Just eat more wood, Zhaozhao started to say, but Qin Yunhan's glare cut her off mid-sentence. The girl quickly shut her mouth and focused on her plate. Qin Yunhan turned her gaze back to the bowl. She stared at the slices of papaya with a sudden, burning intensity, then began shoveling them into her mouth. Usually, she didn't care about her appearance. She was happy as she was, believing that being well endowed only served to attract the attention of annoying boys. But things had changed. She felt a fierce, desperate urge to improve her figure. She wanted to be a woman who commanded attention. She wanted to be a 36D. Poor Sister Yunhan has finally lost it, Zhaozhao thought, watching her friend eat with a sigh. Even if she was a bit slow, Zhaozhao could see the truth. Qin Yunhan viewed Sun Wei and as a rival in love. This wasn't about health or beauty, it was about Wang Haoran. And honestly, she couldn't blame her. Haoran was handsome, wealthy, and possessed a quiet strength that felt incredibly safe. Zhaozhao stole another quick glance at him. The classroom buzzed with hushed whispers. Having 3 of the school's most famous beauties in one room all centered around a single boy, was a sight the other students couldn't ignore. The boys burned with envy, while the girls quietly lamented their own lack of standing. After the meal, Yunhan and Zhaozhao insisted on cleaning up the desks. Wang Haoran took the opportunity to slip away. He headed for the school gate, where Fang Suan was still waiting, leaning against the red Ferrari. "Let's go," Haoran said, sliding into the passenger seat. "Where are we headed?" Fang Suan asked as she got behind the wheel. "New stockings again? The quality looks excellent." Haoran glanced down at her legs with a faint smile. Fang Suan's heart skipped a beat. She didn't need further instructions. She started the engine and pulled away from the curb. Some boundaries, once crossed, tended to disappear entirely. Ding. The host has captured Fang Suan. 500 villain points awarded. Fang Hung's protagonist halo, -25. Fang Suan's heroine halo, -25. Host's villain halo, +50. A few minutes before the final bell of evening self-study, Wang Haoran packed his bag and left. His relationship with the teacher, Song Zhenyu, was good enough that a few minutes of early departure went unnoticed. He held the Ferrari keys in his hand as he walked toward the parking area. He was heading to the Black Peony Bar, and he wanted to keep the excursion a secret from his father. Calling the family driver was out of the question. He had earned his license over the break, and while he lacked years of experience, he was more than capable of handling the streets. As he reached the gates, he spotted Yunhan emerging from the security office, clutching a small courier box. She jumped at the sight of him, reflexively hiding the box behind her back. "Wang Haoran, you're leaving early too?" "I have some business to take care of," he replied. "Oh." Her eyes dropped to the car keys in his hand. "You're driving yourself? Where are you going?" "Just home." "I don't believe you. The driver always picks you up if you're just going home. There is definitely something else going on." Her suspicion was written all over her face. "All right, fine. I have been studying all day and I'm bored. I wanted to find a place to relax." "Where?" "Take me with you. I have been dying of boredom lately." She stepped closer, her interest piqued. Haoran hesitated. He was going to a dangerous underworld haunt, the last place a girl like her belonged. "I'm going to a bar. It isn't the kind of environment you're used to. You should stay here. I am an adult, and I have never even stepped foot inside a bar," Yunhan insisted, her stubbornness flaring. "Take me with you." Chapter 91. Black Peony Bar. "You can go if you really want, but this has to stay between us." Wang Haoran watched the spark of interest dance in Yunhan's eyes. He didn't push back further, offering only a stern warning. While bringing her along was a slight inconvenience to his primary mission, it was a golden opportunity for some rare, private time. The bar scene was a chaotic mess, a perfect stage where a few stray gangsters might try their luck with a girl like her. If that happened, he could easily play the hero, drive them off, and solidify his place in her heart. "If my dad knew I was sneaking into a place like this, he'd scold me to death." "Don't worry, my lips are sealed." "Come on, pinky swear." Yunhan stretched out her little finger, her face lighting up with a childish grin. The gesture felt incredibly naive, but Haoran suppressed a smirk and hooked his finger with hers anyway. They slipped away from the school gates together. "What are you hiding in that box?" He nodded toward the courier package she was desperately trying to keep out of sight. "Just a delivery." "I can see it's a delivery. I'm asking what's inside." The box featured an English trademark he didn't recognize. "Snacks. Just some snacks," she said, her smile turning a bit too bright. Haoran didn't buy it. She had skipped out of class early specifically to intercept this package. Nobody was that desperate for a bag of chips. He focused his mind, letting his perspective vision pierce the cardboard. The box didn't contain food. It was clothes. Specifically, black, close-fitting lace. Judging by the cut, it was a standard B-cup, the most common size for a girl with her build. Black represented mystery and glamour. On the surface, this young lady was arrogant and willful, but deep down, she was harboring a much darker, sullen streak. The red Ferrari roared to life, speeding through the city streets. 20 minutes later, the tires screeched to a halt in front of a sprawling neon facade. The scissor doors swung upward, and the pair stepped out into the humid night air. A high-performance supercar, and two strikingly beautiful people made for an eye-catching entrance. A valet rushed forward, eyes wide as he took in the vehicle. The bar was packed, and the street was a graveyard of parked cars. Haoran tossed the keys to the boy along with a few $100 in tips. "Find a spot for it," he commanded. Standing on the sidewalk, the heavy thrum of bass vibrated through the pavement, accompanied by the sharp, acidic tang of spilled spirits. Before they moved toward the entrance, Haoran turned to his companion. "Can I hold your hand?" "Ha!" Yunhan blinked, caught off guard. This place is full of lowlives. Haoran lied smoothly, his face a mask of concern. If we walk in holding hands, people will assume we're a couple. It'll keep the drunks from harassing you. Okay, if you think it's best. She nodded shyly, her cheeks flushing under the neon lights. He reached out and took her hand. Her palm was soft, small, and trembling with a frantic, nervous energy. Ding. The host has stirred the heart of the heroine Yunhan. 100 villain points awarded. Let's go. He pulled her through the heavy doors. The air inside was thick with alcohol, and the scent of expensive perfume. Music thundered against their eardrums, and dazzling strobes fractured the room into jagged shards of light. On the dance floor, a sea of bodies swayed and heaved in the darkness. Haoran led her to a booth. A waitress arrived almost instantly, her eyes scanning the well-dressed pair. What can I get for you two? Yunhan looked at the menu like it was written in a foreign language. This was her first time in the belly of the beast. Haoran considered ordering her something stiff to get her head spinning, but he had real business to attend to. A drunk girl was a liability he couldn't afford tonight. 2 low-alcohol cocktails, he ordered. The drinks arrived quickly. Yunhan sipped hers, her eyes darting around the room like a curious kitten. Her height and pure, lovely features drew plenty of wandering eyes, but to Haoran's irritation, nobody moved in. Where are the gangsters when you need them? He wondered. Is my presence really that intimidating? He needed a catalyst. I need to hit the restroom. Stay right here. He stepped away, lingering in the shadows of a nearby pillar to see if any bold soul would try to strike up a conversation with her. He waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. Nothing. Forget it. He realized that the hero saves the beauty trope was a privilege usually reserved for protagonists, not villains like him. He walked back to the booth. It's too loud out here, he told her. Let's find a private box. The main floor was too crowded for his liking anyway. If he couldn't use the crowd to play hero, he might as well get down to business. Yeah, let's go, she agreed, clearly overwhelmed by the noise. Haoran secured 2 adjacent private rooms. He led Yunhan into the first one. The heavy door cut the music down to a dull, distant throb. I saw an acquaintance on the way in, Haoran said, keeping his voice casual. I'm going to go say hello. I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, but don't be long, she urged, her voice small. Being alone in the dark room made her uneasy. He nodded and slipped out, entering the second box he had rented. He hit the service bell. A different waitress appeared a moment later. What can I get you, handsome? She asked, her eyes lingering on his face. What's the most expensive bottle you have? The girl's eyes lit up with the prospect of a massive commission. The ace of spades. We have the 6,888 and the 10,888. Which one were you thinking? Bring me 10 bottles of the 10,888, Haoran said. The waitress froze. 10? Can you really drink that much by yourself? I'm not drinking it alone, Haoran replied with a meaningful smile. I see. She leaned in. Would you like me to call some of our girls to keep you company? Haoran didn't answer with words. He pulled out a checkbook, scribbled a figure, and tore out the slip. He laid it on the table, pinning it down with the Ferrari key. The waitress leaned over, squinting at the amount. 10 million. She checked the zeros once, then twice. By the 5th time, her hands were shaking. She was looking at a genuine 10 million yuan check. This wasn't just a handsome guy. This was a god-tier heir. Who should I call for you? She stammered. Black Peony. The girl's jaw dropped. The boss. She never accompanies guests for drinks. Go give her a message, Haoran said, his voice cold and commanding. Tell her I'm paying 1 million yuan per bottle, and I want her to drink them with me. Chapter 92. The hero saves the beauty. 1 million yuan to drink a single bottle of wine. When the young waitress heard the offer, she stood frozen. The monthly net profit of this entire establishment rarely cleared a few 100,000. To pull in 1 million for a single bottle was the kind of windfall any business owner would kill for. As far as she knew, the boss enjoyed a good drink anyway. She hurried out of the VIP box to spread the word, her heels clicking rapidly against the floor. Wang Haoran waited in the quiet luxury of the suite. A minute or two passed before his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw Yunhan's name flashing on the screen. I'm still chatting with an acquaintance, he said as he answered, assuming she was simply bored and looking for an update. I'll be back soon. 2 men stopped me. They won't let me go. You please, come save me. Yunhan's voice trembled on the other end. Haoran felt a surge of genuine surprise, followed quickly by a spark of satisfaction. The hero saves the beauty trope had finally arrived. Where are you? Are you still in the box? I'm hiding in the women's bathroom. They're waiting for me right outside. Don't hang up. I'm coming right now. Haoran vaulted off the sofa. He had scoped out the layout earlier, while pretending to look for the facilities. He knew exactly where she was. However, as he neared the restrooms, a familiar figure appeared in the corridor. Xiao Yifeng. Haoran stopped short, cursing his own momentary lapse in judgment. His father and Qin Kai had gone to the bureau together. If Wang Xiang knew that the mastermind behind the kidnapping was linked to Black Peony, Qin Kai certainly knew it too. And if Qin Kai knew, his shadow, Xiao Yifeng, would be right behind him. The protagonist was here for the exact same reason. Haoran analyzed the situation. It was clear the system had intended for Qin Yunhan to be harassed so that Xiao Yifeng could swoop in for the rescue. It was a scripted moment meant to solidify the bodyguard's bond with the heiress. Xiao Yifeng noticed Haoran at the same time. He spared the wealthy heir a single look of pure disdain, before turning into the men's room. He clearly had no idea Qin Yunhan was even in the building. He was simply taking a convenience break before starting his investigation. Haoran reached the restroom area and spotted two young men with dyed, flamboyant hair. They leaned against the wall, smoking and talking in hushed, jagged tones. What if the girl stays in there forever? One asked. Give her a few more minutes. If she doesn't come out, we'll go in and drag her out. You sure about this? What if she's with someone important? The other laughed, blowing a cloud of smoke. This is the boss's territory. Who's going to lift a finger against us? Haoran ignored the thugs for a moment, speaking softly into his phone. I'm right outside. Don't be afraid. Come out now. Okay. The door creaked open. Qin Yunhan trotted out, her face pale. The moment she saw Haoran, she scrambled behind him, clutching his shirt like a lifeline. The two thugs immediately tossed their cigarettes and moved to surround them. Just these two? Haoran asked, his voice low and calm. Yes, she whispered. Did they touch you? No, but they said horrible things. Haoran nodded. He turned his gaze toward the young men, his eyes cold. Kneel down. Apologize to my friend. Slap yourselves 10 times each, and I might let you walk out of here. Haha. Did you hear this, kid? You little. The thug didn't get to finish his insult. Haoran's foot connected with his chest in a blur of motion. The man was launched 5 meters back, his body hitting the wall with a sickening thud. Blood sprayed from his mouth as he collapsed. The second youth froze. His legs began to shake violently. He lowered his head, his voice cracking. I'm SOR. Before the word sorry could leave his lips, he followed his companion, spinning through the air from a lightning-fast strike. Ding. The host has intercepted the protagonist's opportunity. By rescuing the heroine and punishing the gangsters, you have earned 300 villain points. Xiao Yifeng's protagonist Halo, -15. Host's villain Halo, +15. Was it okay to hit them that hard? Qin Yunhan felt a rush of relief seeing her tormentors on the floor, but fear for Haoran quickly took its place. She didn't want him getting into legal trouble for her sake. They dared to treat you like that? I could kill them, Haoran shouted. He moved as if he were about to lunge at the shivering, vomiting youths to finish the job. His actor-level skills were in full swing, the fury in his eyes looked terrifyingly real. Wang Haoran, don't. Stop. Qin Yunhan lunged forward, trying to grab his arm, but he was too strong. Desperate, she threw her arms around his waist from behind, using her entire weight to anchor him. Haoran slowly forced himself to calm down. He turned back to look at her. Qin Yunhan's face was flushed crimson, her heart racing against his back. Realizing she was hugging him, she let go instantly, looking everywhere but at his eyes. Her mind was a whirlwind. He had been so consumed by rage on her behalf that he was willing to kill. To him, she was clearly more than just a friend. Ding. Heroine Qin Yunhan's favorability has increased by 10. Current total 65. Love from the heart. Ding. The host has successfully altered the plot. 300 villain points awarded. The two injured thugs scrambled to their feet and limped away into the shadows of the bar. They're lucky I let them go, Haoran snorted, still feigning a lingering anger. He turned to the girl. Are you all right? Are you hurt? I'm fine, she whispered, her voice barely audible. You can just call me Yunhan from now on. All right, Yunhan. Haoran caught a movement out of the corner of his eye. His perspective vision showed Xiao Yifeng finally exiting the men's room. Let's get back to the box. Haoran reached out and took her hand firmly. A small, unconscious smile played on her lips as she felt the strength of his grip. Miss. A shocked, thunderous shout erupted from behind them. They had only taken a few steps when Xiao Yifeng spotted them. Qin Yunhan stiffened, pretending she hadn't heard, and tried to quicken her pace. But Xiao Yifeng was fast. He sprinted around them, blocking their path. Miss. It really is you. He stood there, stunned. He couldn't wrap his head around it. How was the eldest daughter of the Qin family in a place this filthy? And more importantly, why was she holding hands with Wang Haoran? She wasn't pulling away. She looked content. A cold, jagged fire of jealousy ignited in Xiao Yifeng's chest. Ding. The host has caused the protagonist Xiao Yifeng's mentality to collapse. 300 villain points awarded. Chapter 93. The Black Peony. Black Peony is 29 years old. Her real name is Zhuozhao Chinayo, a name evoking the grace of falling blossoms, but her life has been anything but delicate. When she was 6, an underworld dispute claimed the lives of her parents. Their death cast a long, cold shadow over her heart, planting seeds of hatred that bloomed into a ruthless character. Following the death of her grandfather, 18-year-old Zhuozhao Chinayo inherited his territory. She stepped into the role of a crime lord with a ferocity that stunned her rivals. Within 5 years, her name became a synonym for terror in the Qingling city underground. They called her Black Peony, Peony for her unparalleled beauty and grace, and black for the cold cruelty of her heart. In her prime, business leaders trembled at her shadow. But as society stabilized, the era of the iron-fisted street boss began to fade. Her influence waned. The gray market businesses that once fueled her empire could no longer survive the light of modern law. She tried to go straight, but Zhuozhao Chinayo was a woman of the blade, not the books. She lacked business experience, and her investments failed one after another. This bar is her only success, though its monthly profit barely supports her remaining subordinates. She often thinks of disbanding the crew, but her grandfather's dying wish was for her to hold the land he bled for. Besides, these men have no other skills. Without the bar, they would be relegated to moving bricks on construction sites, a fate their pride wouldn't allow. To maintain her grandfather's legacy, the once fearsome eldest sister now lives as a female boss plagued by financial stress. 7 years ago, if a man had asked her to accompany him for drinks, she would have ordered his head. Today, she bows her head to the reality of survival. 1,000,000 yuan per bottle is a fortune. She can handle her liquor 5 bottles, maybe more. That is 5,000,000 yuan for a single night's work. As for the risk of a man taking advantage of her, Zhuozhao Chinayo isn't worried. No man has ever touched her against her will and lived to boast of it. Lead the way, Zhuozhao Chinayo commanded the waitress. Miss, how can you be in a place like this? It's depraved. Xiao Yifeng's voice was thick with judgment as he stood before Qin Yunhan. If your father knew, he would be heartbroken. Degenerate? For coming to a bar. Qin Yunhan let out a dry, frustrated laugh. Her eyes flashed with a warning heat. You listen to me, don't you dare report this to my father, or you'll regret it. I can keep your secret, Xiao Yifeng bartered, his tone cold. But you must promise to keep your distance from Wang Haoran. He isn't a good person. He brought you here to get you drunk and take advantage of you. You're delusional. I chose to come here. Qin Yunhan pouted, her impatience peaking. Stay away from me. Every time you show up, something goes wrong. As the words left her mouth, a dozen young men surged through the hallway, surrounding them. At the front of the pack were the 2 thugs Wang Haoran had kicked earlier. They were limping, their faces bruised, and their eyes burned with a thirst for revenge. I told you that you were a jinx, Qin Yunhan whispered, grabbing Haoran's arm as the circle closed in. Don't worry, miss. I will protect you. Xiao Yifeng stepped forward, his expression indifferent to the odds. There he is. That's the kid. The 2 injured thugs pointed trembling fingers at Haoran. You're supposed to be so good at fighting, Qin Yunhan barked at Xiao Yifeng. Do something. I am only responsible for your safety, miss, Xiao Yifeng replied, shaking his head. He wanted to see Wang Haoran humbled. If the boy took a beating, it only served his interests. Whatever happens to him has nothing to do with me. Xiao Yifeng, that's an order. Do it, or I'll have my father fire you. There are too many of them. I must stay by your side. Uncle Qin will understand my priority. Xiao Yifeng stood like a stone wall, unmoved by her panic. It's all right, Haoran said, patting Qin Yunhan's shoulder to steady her. I don't need his help. With 18 years of internal strength humming in his veins, these rascals were nothing more than targets. He was about to move when a woman's voice, sharp and domineering, cut through the tension. What is going on here? The crowd parted instantly. An enchanting woman stepped into the light. Boss, boss. The thugs bowed their heads in unison. Wang Haoran's eyes narrowed as he took her in. She wore an off-the-shoulder dress with a black and red pattern that clung to every curve of her silhouette. Her burgundy hair fell in deep waves over her shoulders. Her face was a mask of snow-white perfection, devoid of emotion but radiating a magnetic, dangerous charm. As she walked, the movement of her slender legs seemed to command the very air in the room. Haoran felt his pulse quicken. He activated his perspective vision for a fleeting second, but the sheer impact of her physical perfection forced him to look away before he lost his composure. This was Black Peony. She possessed the classic background of a female lead in an underworld novel. Haoran spent 100 villain points to confirm his suspicion. Heroine Zhuozhao Chinayo. Combat Strength 191. Charm 279. Halo 453. Skills Natural Allure, Advanced Assassination. Favorability 0, Stranger. She was indeed a heroine. Chapter 94. Threatening the Big Sister. This city held too many beauties for one man to track. Xiao Yifeng stared at Zhuozhao Chinayo, his throat moving in a steady rhythm of audible gulps. He made no effort to hide his leering expression, his gaze lingering with the crude intensity of a man who had forgotten exactly why he had walked into the building in the first place. Zhuozhao Chinayo caught the look. A sharp frown creased her brow, but she dismissed him as a non-entity, turning her focus instead to Wang Haoran. She had intended for the waitress to lead her straight to the private suite, but they had intercepted the group in the hallway. The scene spoke for itself. A conflict had erupted between her men and this young guest. More accurately, the guest had dismantled her men. You two, tell me what happened. Now. Zhuozhao Chinayo's voice was like ice. Her eyes locked onto the two young thugs who were still nursing their injuries. They looked at her with a reverence bordering on religious fear. They didn't dare lie. Stuttering, they recounted the events one by one. I believe I made myself clear, Zhuozhao Chinayo said, her tone dropping into a dangerous register. You play in this bar, but only if the women are willing. Now you are out here deliberately harassing the guests. She had built this business on a foundation of strict rules. Since she had opened her doors to the public, she expected those rules to be followed. Boss, we were wrong. Do with us what you will. The two men dropped to their knees. They knew the code. Yunhan's beauty had simply been too much for their weak minds to handle, and now their failure had reached the ears of the one person they feared most. And the rest of you? You knew they were violating the rules, yet you stood here to help them? Zhuozhao Chinayo scanned the other subordinates. Their heads bowed in a silent admission of guilt. The two who started this will kneel for 3 days in front of the statue of Guangong. No food, only water. The rest of you will join them for a full day as a reminder of what happens when you back a rule breaker. Yes, boss. The men looked miserable, but not one of them dared to whisper a word of protest. As the hallway cleared, Zhuozhao Chinayo finally stepped toward Wang Haoran. Up close, she faltered. The waitress hadn't mentioned his age. Subconsciously, she had expected a middle-aged tycoon with deep pockets and a receding hairline. Instead, she found a boy who hadn't even seen his 20th birthday, standing tall and composed while spending tens of millions on a whim. Stranger still, he had a beautiful girl already at his side. Shall we find a place to talk? She didn't mention the money or the drinks. She simply gestured toward the suites. Haoran nodded, but he didn't follow her immediately. He turned back to Yunhan and escorted her to their previous box. Wait for me here. I won't be long. Okay. Yunhan's mind was a storm of questions, but the sheer gravity of the woman in the hallway left her stiff. She simply sat down and watched him leave. Haoran entered the second box. Zhuozhao Chinayo was already draped across the velvet sofa, waiting. Is that your little girlfriend? Bringing a girl like that to a bar only to pay for the company of other women. You rich heirs really are a strange breed, she teased. Haoran caught the edge in her voice. She doesn't recognize her, he realized. If Zhuozhao Chinayo didn't know Yunhan by sight, then there was no direct blood feud with the Qin family. If there were true hatred there, she would know Qin Kai's only daughter on sight. That meant the mastermind was someone else. Zhuozhao Chinayo was merely a gatekeeper. Let's skip the small talk, Haoran said, settling into a chair. I have something more interesting to discuss. Fine. Zhuozhao Chinayo glanced at the 10 bottles of Ace of Spades lining the table. You said $1 million a bottle. Stop wasting time and let's drink. There are only 10 bottles here. Even if you finish them all, you only earn 10 million. Are you really that desperate for pocket change? Zhuozhao Chinayo's eyes flashed with a cold light. You have money, kid, but if you came here to insult me, you're going to regret it. Relax. I'm actually here to offer you a business deal. I only deal in legitimate business these days. Legitimate? Is that what you call kidnapping the daughter of the Qin group? Haoran narrowed his eyes, watching for a twitch. Her voice dropped to a low, guarded hum. I have no idea what you're talking about. I want the name of the person who asked you to take her. As a show of good faith, I'll pay 10 million just for the information. He had originally planned to use brute force to squeeze the truth out of her, but knowing she was a heroine changed the math. He needed a different approach. 10 million for a name is a hell of a deal, she said, her face a mask of genuine regret. But like I said, I'm straight now. The kidnapping has nothing to do with me. I've heard you have a man on your payroll nicknamed Eagle, Haoran pressed. I did. But I told my men to stay clean. Eagle broke the rules and took private contracts on the side. I kicked him out a month ago. He isn't mine anymore. Whatever he did on his own. Haoran felt a headache forming. If she were involved, she could have easily taken the check and fed him a lie, but her refusal felt authentic. If the trail ended here, the kidnapping case was back to zero. Damn it. Fine. I believe you, Haoran said, leaning forward. But since Eagle used to be your man, you know how he thinks. I want you to find him for me. Fast. I've lived a long time, and nobody has ever used that tone with me, Zhaozhao said. A fierce, predatory light entered her charming eyes. Are you looking for a grave? I'll give you 3 days, Haoran countered, his voice steady and sharp. He wasn't intimidated by the big sister, or the small army of thugs outside the door. He was a villain of a higher caliber. In 3 days, I expect a location for Eagle. If you fail, you will deal with the consequences. He stared her down. She could call every man in the building, and he would still walk out over their bodies. He didn't care about her reputation. He cared about the result. Chapter 95. Beauty over backbone. Stinky boy doesn't know how high the sky is. Zhaozhao's voice cracked like a whip. Though she claimed to be running a legitimate business now, her ruthlessness remained. Being ridiculed to her face was a provocation she couldn't stomach. Her pale, jade-white hand snatched a heavy glass ashtray from the table. She swung it with a murderous arc toward Wang Haoran's forehead. The slab of glass weighed nearly 3 kilograms. At that speed, it wouldn't just draw blood. It would crush a skull instantly. Zhaozhao intended to kill. The ashtray never reached its mark. Before the glass could descend, a hand clamped onto her neck like a steel vice. With a sudden, upward surge of power, Haoran lifted her entirely off the ground. Her fingers clawed at the iron grip tightening around her throat. She kicked, but her feet only met empty air. The ashtray shattered on the floor, forgotten. Haoran had intended to be patient with her since she was a heroine, but her casual brutality changed the math. If that glass had connected with an ordinary man, he'd be a vegetable or a corpse. In 3 days, I want the news about Eagle, Haoran said. His voice was a low, glacial crawl. Is there a problem? I'm never intimidated, she gasped. Her face turned a dangerous shade of purple. Even as her lungs burned for oxygen, she gritted her teeth, refusing to bow. I appreciate the backbone. Truly. It's a shame you'll have to carry it with you to hell. Haoran's palm tightened. The killing intent radiating from him was palpable, a cold weight that filled the small room. Dizziness swamped her. Oxygen deprivation turned the world into a blur of gray. For the first time in her life, Zhaozhao felt the literal edge of the grave. I promise. She managed to wheeze. The darkness claimed her immediately after. When she finally regained consciousness, she was lying on the velvet sofa. Haoran sat beside her, calm and composed, as if the life and death struggle had never happened. Horror coiled in her chest. She was the big sister, who had led charges into rival gangs, yet in front of this boy, she had been as helpless as a child. He looked barely 20, but his strength was terrifying. Haoran watched her wake with a faint, mocking smile. He had spent the last few minutes performing a bit of first aid, including artificial respiration. He had also taken the liberty of a thorough physical examination. Since Xiao Yifeng was a legendary divine doctor, Haoran naturally suspected Zhaozhao might be harboring some hidden ailment, like Ling Duanya. Instead, she was perfectly healthy. But one discovery had left him genuinely stunned. Despite her age and the chaotic, predatory environment of the underworld, Zhaozhao was still pure. It was a classic heroine trope, yet seeing it in a woman nearly 30 was staggering. It seems life is more important than backbone after all, Haoran joked, breaking the heavy silence. Zhaozhao clenched her fists so hard her knuckles turned white. She remained silent, glaring at him with smoldering resentment. Don't look at me like that. Take a look at your right hand instead. She looked down, puzzled. In the center of her palm sat a tiny, vivid red dot. She knew her body. That mark hadn't been there 10 minutes ago. What did you do to me? Her voice trembled. Just a little insurance to ensure you stay obedient, Haoran explained casually. Think of it as a slow-acting poison. As long as you follow instructions, I'll provide the antidote regularly. You won't die, provided you behave. The toxin was a personal concoction he developed after mastering advanced toxicology. You, she surged with a sudden, helpless rage. She wanted to wrap her hands around his neck, but the memory of his strength kept her pinned to the sofa. You're quite the expert in assassination, aren't you? Haoran remarked. I only did this so I could sleep soundly at night. Zhuozhao body stiffened. She had just been plotting exactly that, finding him when his guard was down and ending him. How do you know about that? She whispered. Even her closest subordinates didn't know the extent of her training. That's not your concern. Just follow orders. Haoran paused, letting the threat hang before softening his tone. If you do well, I might move you into a legitimate, profitable business. Something far better than running this crumbling bar. Really? The anger in her eyes flickered, replaced by a momentary flash of greed. Everyone wanted to make real money. Her current profits barely kept her crew fed and the lights on. She dreamed of mansions, supercars, and the kind of luxury that didn't require looking over her shoulder. Of course, she calmed herself, her suspicion returning. And the price? What do I have to pay for this golden opportunity? She had spent years fending off the advances of powerful men in the city, often at the edge of a blade. She expected the same demand from the boy in front of her. I want you, Haoran said bluntly. Zhuozhao didn't hesitate. Then just kill me now. Haoran sighed inwardly. Unlike Fang Suan, this woman didn't have a specific weakness he could exploit to break her will. Death didn't scare her as much as surrender. Don't worry, he said, rising from the sofa. I won't touch a single finger of yours until you're the one asking for it. You think I'm going to fall in love with a little boy like you? She let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Little boy? Once you fall for me, I'll make sure you retract that statement. You'll know exactly how much of a man I am. There will never be such a day, she sneered, her red lips curving into a cold line. 3 days for the message. I have other things to attend to. Haoran picked up his Ferrari keys. The check, she said, nodding toward the 10 million yuan slip on the table. Aren't you taking it back? Keep it. Consider it your pocket money for the month. He flashed a charming, effortless smile and stepped out of the room. Zhuozhao sat frozen. 10 million yuan in pocket money. She had been a boss for a decade, and had never held that much liquid cash at once. Now, it was just sitting there. She wanted to be the iron-willed leader. She wanted to treat the check like trash. But the reality of her 29 years weighed on her. Skin, beauty, and youth were fleeting assets. With this money, she could afford the world's best skincare and treatments. She could preserve herself. How much was a pound of backbone worth anyway? Compared to eternal beauty, it was worthless. Deep in her mind, the battle between pride and vanity ended in a landslide victory for the latter. Ding. Heroine Zhuozhao favorability has increased by 20. Total 20, very friendly. Ding. The host has influenced the plot. 400 villain points awarded. Chapter 96. Deep Love and Distant Shadows. Wang Haoran stepped away from Zhuozhao gaze and returned to the VIP section. Xiao Yifeng stood like a sentry outside Qin Yunhan's box, his expression a mixture of bruised pride and lingering resentment. The boy looked thoroughly aggrieved. Haoran didn't need to be a psychic to understand the situation. Xiao Yifeng had likely tried to force his way into the box to protect her, only to be unceremoniously kicked out by the heiress herself. Haoran brushed past the bodyguard without a word and pushed open the door. I told you to leave. I'm annoyed just looking at you. Oh, it's you. Qin Yunhan had been hunched over her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen in frustration. At the sound of the door, she had snapped at the intruder with reflexive impatience. When she looked up and saw Haoran's face, her irritation vanished instantly. A bright, genuine smile replaced her scowl. It's getting late, Haoran said, gesturing toward the exit. Let's get you home. She stood up from the velvet sofa with alacrity. As they stepped out into the hallway and past Xiao Yifeng, her face hardened into a cold mask of authority. I'm warning you, do not say a word about this to my father. Xiao Yifeng forced a strained, awkward laugh. I promise, miss. But could you maybe not be so fierce with me in the future? Fine. I promise. Just remember, not a word about the bar. She didn't wait for his confirmation before following Haoran toward the street. Once they were clear of the bodyguard's hearing, she leaned closer to Haoran, her voice hushed and urgent. That Xiao Yifeng is so incredibly annoying. The only reason I gave him the time of day just now was to make sure he keeps his mouth shut. I don't want my dad finding out I was here. I understand. Haoran offered a reassuring smile. The fact that she felt the need to explain herself so specifically was a clear sign. She was worried about what he thought. She didn't want him thinking there was any hidden rapport between her and the bodyguard. They reached the street and climbed back into the red Ferrari. As the engine roared to life, Haoran wasn't worried about Xiao Yifeng staying behind to interrogate Zhuozhao. If he were in the protagonist's shoes, he wouldn't let the girl he loved drive off alone with a rival. Somewhere in the rearview mirror, a taxi was likely following the Ferrari's taillights. Haoran chose to ignore it. He had a more important goal. Yunhan's favorability was sitting at 65. He was on the verge of a breakthrough. Do you think it's strange? Haoran asked as he navigated the city traffic. That I went to speak with that woman in private. Zhuozhao. It's a beautiful name, she mused, gazing out the window at the passing neon. If I just heard the name, I'd never associate it with a woman like that. It is a little strange. You don't exactly move in the same circles. I don't make a habit of dealing with people like her, Haoran said, his voice dropping into a somber, half-truthful tone. But she has information regarding the person who tried to kidnap you. You went in there for me? Yes, it was true enough. Finding the kidnapper was a priority, even if it served his own villainous agenda. Yunhan's breath hitched. She went quiet, her heart racing against her ribs. Why would you do something so dangerous on your own? I'm worried about you, Haoran replied. He looked at her with an expression of raw, manufactured sincerity. I don't want to see you in trouble again. Why are you being so kind to me? She whispered, her eyes wide and incredulous. Haoran didn't use words to answer. He simply reached out with his free hand and squeezed her small hand firmly. The car fell into a heavy, charged silence. No words were needed. The air between them was thick with an unspoken shift in their relationship. Ding. Heroine Yunhan's favorability has increased by 10, total 75. Deep love. Ding. The host has significantly influenced the plot. 800 villain points awarded. Xiao Yifeng's protagonist Halo, -30. Host's villain Halo, +30. Haoran suppressed a triumphant grin. His gamble had paid off. By framing his meeting with a crime boss as a selfless risk for her safety, he had completely won her over. At 75, her favorability was now higher than even Sun Weian's. At this level of devotion, a girl's tolerance for boldness usually skyrocketed. Haoran tested the waters. He let go of her hand and shifted his palm, resting it firmly on her smooth, fair leg. Yunhan shuddered at the touch, her skin jumping under his hand, but she didn't pull away. She didn't even protest. She simply stared ahead at the road, her breathing shallow, acting as if nothing out of the ordinary was happening. He gave her leg a gentle squeeze. Still, she remained silent. He wanted to push further, but the Ferrari was a demanding machine. Driving a high-performance supercar with one hand while distracted was a recipe for a fatal crash. He forced his darker impulses down. There would be plenty of time for that later. The car eventually pulled up to the gates of Mizusawa Middle School. He watched her walk through the gates, her steps light and floating. Once she was out of sight, he leaned back and activated his perspective vision. Sure enough, a taxi was idling a short distance behind him. Xiao Yifeng sat in the back, watching the school entrance. Thank God, Xiao Yifeng muttered to himself as he saw the heiress disappear into the safety of the school. At least she still has a sense of propriety. She didn't go off to a hotel with him. He could see she liked the boy, but he comforted himself with the belief that she was still innocent. Suddenly, he slapped his own thigh in frustration. Damn it, I forgot. He had been so focused on trailing them that he had completely abandoned his investigation at the bar. He was about to tell the driver to turn back when his phone rang. It was Qin Kai. Yifeng, how are the leads? I haven't turned anything up yet, Uncle Qin, Xiao Yifeng lied. He had promised Qin Yunhan to keep her secret, and that meant hiding where he had been. What have you been doing all this time? Qin Kai's voice was tinged with disappointment. He was beginning to doubt the young man's competence. Don't worry, Uncle Qin. Just give me a little more time. I'll find the mastermind. Forget the bar. I just got word that Eagle has broken ties with Black Peony. Approaching her is likely a dead end. I'm putting out a bounty for information on his location instead. If Black Peony is a dead end, I'll focus elsewhere, Xiao Yifeng said, eager to prove his worth. If you get a location on Eagle, tell me immediately. He hung up, his eyes narrowing with determination. He was convinced that Wang Haoran had only won the girl's heart through a few lucky breaks. In a real crisis, a pampered rich kid wouldn't stand a chance. Outside the taxi, Wang Haoran watched the bodyguard's lips move through the car window. He sighed with relief. He hadn't been sure if Xiao Yifeng's medical skills could counter the toxin he'd given Zhuozhao. But if the protagonist was abandoning the Black Peony lead entirely, he wouldn't be meeting her anytime soon. The secret remained safe. For now. Chapter 97. The Eagle's Trail. Wang Haoran gave Zhaozhao 3 days to dig up news on Eagle. While he waited for the word to come in, Fang Heng remained a busy little bee, purchasing several small antiques for a total of 12 million yuan. Just as he had before, Wang Haoran provided Fang Suan with the capital to cover the costs. In just a few short days, Fang Heng's unwitting cash cow had produced nearly 20 million. At this momentum, Wang Haoran estimated a monthly intake of 1 or 200 million. The money didn't just trickle in, it rushed like a great river. He could now maintain a life of absolute luxury without touching a cent of his family's fortune. Flush with cash, Wang Haoran decided it was time to celebrate and sample the decadent lifestyle typical of wealthy young heirs. Following evening self-study, he sent a message to Wen Jing, telling her she wouldn't be returning to her dorm that night. She agreed instantly, her compliance as reliable as ever. On his other line, he called Fang Suan and told her to meet him. Wen Jing was well-behaved and would likely accept more excessive arrangements without a word. Fang Suan, with her rigid temperament, would find it much harder to swallow. Wang Haoran didn't particularly care about her feelings or her heart, but he intended to use a bit of charm before resorting to force. To prepare them psychologically, he booked 2 separate presidential suites, housing the women in their own rooms for the time being. Excitement hummed in his veins as he prepared to start Fang Suan's ideological work. However, just as he reached for her door handle, his phone vibrated. Irritation flared. The night was just beginning. Who would dare bother him now? He moved to silence the call, but stopped when he saw the caller, ID Zhaozhao. He suppressed his annoyance and answered. My scouts found traces of Eagle near the Tingxin community, she reported without preamble. Is the lead solid? Do you really think I'd dare lie to you? She mocked. Between the poison in her system and the fact that Haoran held her life in his hands, she knew better than to play games. Send a picture of the target to my phone. Understood. The line went dead. Wang Haoran stood in the hallway, deep in thought. Everyone in the city was hunting for Eagle, and the man had chosen Tingxin to ground himself. It was a massive residential complex. Flushing out a professional like him among thousands of residents wouldn't be easy. Tingxin community. The name sparked a memory. He checked his map and confirmed it. The complex was right near Mizusawa Middle School. He had been there recently to drop off Song Zhenyu. Considering the heroin magnet for trouble, he wondered if his teacher was about to have a very bad night. It was no coincidence that a high-profile criminal had bypassed the slums of Qingling City to hide in the exact neighborhood where Song Zhenyu lived. If Qin Kai's intelligence network was moving, Xiao Yifeng would have the same lead. The protagonist would be heading for Tingxin. The original plot was about to trigger. Haoran made a snap decision. He pushed open the door to Fang Suan's suite. She was perched on the edge of the bed, draped in a shimmering silk nightgown. Her hair was damp from a recent shower, and her eyes were dull, filled with a resigned, impatient dread for what she expected to happen next. I've already covered the room, Haoran said, his voice flat. Get some rest. If you have work in the morning, just head out. He didn't wait for her response. He had no idea how long tonight would take, and he wasn't sure if he'd return. Fang Suan sat in stunned silence as the door clicked shut. Confusion clouded her mind. He had called her out specifically for this, only to walk away without touching her. Is he already tired of me? A strange, inexplicable sense of loneliness washed over her. Wang Haoran hailed a car and arrived at the outskirts of the Tingxin community. He stayed in the shadows of the vehicle, using his perspective vision to sweep the entrance. Sure enough, he spotted Xiao Yifeng lurking near the security booth at the main gate. The protagonist was in position. The plot was definitely in motion. Avoiding the gate, Haoran found a blind spot in the fence and slipped into the community. He moved with practiced ease through the familiar paths until he reached Song Zhenyu's building. It was far too late to knock on her door with a rational explanation, and she lived on the 3rd floor, low enough for a direct approach. He scaled the exterior piping with ease, reaching the eaves outside her bedroom window. A light glowed from within. He activated his perspective vision. Song Zhenyu wasn't in the bedroom. The sound of running water placed her in the shower. The coast was clear. The bedroom window was half open, though blocked by an iron security guardrail. Haoran gripped the metal bars and pulled. With a groan of yielding steel, the rail bent wide enough for him to squeeze through. Once inside, he used his brute strength to hammer the bars back into their original shape. The apartment was small, offering very few places to hide. He glanced around and finally slid under the bed. Minutes later, Song Zhenyu emerged from the bathroom. She moved through her routine, eventually flicking off the lights and climbing into bed. Haoran lay flat against the cold, uncomfortable floor. He checked his watch. The hours ticked by until 3 in the morning. Song Zhenyu's breathing was light and even. She was deep in sleep. Haoran, however, was miserable. The cramped space and the dust were taking their toll, but he forced himself to stay sharp. At 3:30, a soft, metallic scratching sound echoed from the front door. Haoran's focus sharpened. He looked through the floorboards and walls using his perspective. A man was crouched at the entrance, fiddling with a wire. A few seconds later, the lock clicked open. The intruder slipped inside, creeping toward the bedroom with the silence of a predator. Instead of approaching the bed, the man pulled a gas mask over his face. He lit a specialized cigarette and placed it just inside the bedroom door. A thick, sweet-smelling smoke began to drift toward the sleeping woman. It was a knockout gas. Haoran didn't move yet. He held his breath, waiting. If he stopped the man now, he'd have to explain to a very confused teacher why he was under her bed in the middle of the night. He needed the man to make the first move. Chapter 98. Catching the Eagle. Thick, sweet smoke curled through the bedroom like a living thing. After a few minutes, the intruder swaggered through the doorway. He didn't bother with stealth anymore. A jagged, arrogant laugh broke the silence. "I've been running and hiding for days," the man muttered, his voice thick with a desperate, suppressed hunger. "Finally, I can enjoy myself." This was the Eagle. He was a creature of impulse, a man whose life revolved around the pursuit of women. The past few days of hiding had been a suffocating prison for his libido. Earlier that morning, he had spotted a stunning woman in the community. A few quick questions to the neighbors revealed she was a teacher who lived alone. The Eagle's mind made itself up instantly. To be safe, he waited for the dead of night, the hour when sleep is heaviest and the world is blind. He had successfully infiltrated her sanctuary, and his specialized smoke ensured the beautiful teacher wouldn't be waking up anytime soon. "Better take her out of here first," he whispered. His hand fumbled along the wall, searching for the light switch. Song Zhenyu was far too beautiful to use once and discard. He wanted to savor her. Staying here was a risk. If she woke up and screamed, his location would be blown. But if he moved her to a place where the early morning silence swallowed all sound, he could do whatever he pleased. His fingers finally brushed against the plastic switch. Click. The room flooded with light. The Eagle froze. Standing beside the unconscious woman was a boy who couldn't have been more than 20. He wasn't cowering or calling for help. Instead, he watched the Eagle with a calm, terrifyingly pleasant smile. "You, who the hell are you?" The Eagle stammered, his blood turning to ice. "Sorry, but you aren't qualified to ask questions," Wang Haoran replied. Before the Eagle could draw a breath, Haoran's leg blurred. A heavy kick caught the man square in the groin. Ding. The host has intercepted Xiao Yifeng's path and rescued the heroine Song Zhenyu. 300 villain points awarded. Xiao Yifeng's protagonist Halo, -10. Host's villain Halo, +10. The Eagle collapsed, fainting instantly from the sheer, blinding agony. It was a brutal blow, the kind that ensured he would never be a threat to a woman again. Haoran knelt beside the heaving man and delivered a series of sharp slaps to his face until his eyes fluttered open. The Eagle stared up at him, cold sweat drenching his brow, trembling with primal horror. "I'm going to ask you a question," Haoran said, his voice light and conversational. "You answer exactly what I ask. Understood?" "Understood. I understand," the Eagle stammered, nodding frantically. Haoran gestured toward the sleeping Song Zhenyu. "Where were you taking her?" "To an abandoned factory." Haoran let out a quiet, knowing grunt. Routines. It was always the same tired routine. Xiao Yifeng was currently playing guard dog at the front gate. Since the Eagle couldn't fly or vanish through walls, he would have eventually tried to smuggle Song Zhenyu past that gate. That was when the hero would have stepped in to save the damsel. "Not tonight." "Who hired you to kidnap Qin Yunhan, the daughter of the Qin group?" "I don't know." "Arg." The Eagle's answer was cut short by another targeted kick to his midsection. He shrieked and spiraled back into unconsciousness. A minute later, Haoran slapped him awake once more. "Who hired you? I really don't recognize." "Ah." The cycle repeated. The Eagle fainted. The Eagle woke up to the sting of Haoran's palm. "One more time. Who hired you to kidnap the Qin girl?" "Stop. Don't. Just listen to me." The Eagle screamed, his voice cracking with desperation. Haoran's foot hovered midair, a silent threat. The Eagle's soul nearly left his body. He spoke in a frantic, blurred rush. "It was a woman. When we met, she was wearing a heavy veil. I couldn't see her face, but I saw her eyes. Phoenix eyes. She had a distinct red mole right between her eyebrows. Judging by the lines around her eyes, she was probably around 40. I swear that's all I know. I don't know her name." Haoran considered this for a moment. Then, his foot finished its arc. The eagle let out one final whimper and went limp. This time, Haoran let him sleep. He had asked the question enough times to ensure the man wasn't lying. The details remained consistent under torture. A middle-aged woman with phoenix eyes and a red mole. In a city the size of Qingling, it was still a needle in a haystack. But a needle was better than a handful of hay. He looked down at the broken man. He had no intention of letting this information reach Xiao Yaifeng. Even general clues were too much for the protagonist to have. Haoran placed his hand on the eagle's head, channeling his internal energy. Drawing on the medical knowledge within the Supreme Poison Sutra, he carefully disrupted a specific section of the man's brain tissue. When the eagle eventually woke up, his mind would be a blank slate. He would be a harmless fool, remembering nothing of his past or this night. With that finished, Haoran checked on Song Zhenyu. She was perfectly fine, simply lost in a deep, chemically induced sleep. She would wake up naturally at dawn. Part of him realized this was a golden opportunity to take advantage of the situation. But the thought disgusted him. He was a top-tier villain, not a common thug. Coercion and calculated seduction were his tools. Assaulting an unconscious woman was beneath him. It was vulgar, boring, and utterly devoid of the finesse he took pride in. Just before the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Haoran hoisted the eagle onto his shoulder. He moved like a shadow, bypassing the community's security cameras, and dumped the man into a dense patch of shrubbery near one of the walking paths. He scaled the perimeter wall and dropped into the street. From a distance, he glanced back at the main gate. Xiao Yaifeng was still there, sitting in the security booth like a loyal dog waiting for a rabbit that was never coming. Haoran smiled to himself and headed back to the hotel. It was 4 a.m. The thrill of a corrupt night had long since evaporated, replaced by the fatigue of the hunt. He called Wen Jing, telling her he was coming back to get some rest while it was still dark. Settling into the plush bed of the presidential suite, he opened his system interface one last time. Host Wang Haoran. Combat Strength 1099. Charm 268. Villain Halo 841. Villain Points 3500. Skills Master Level Calligraphy / Painting, Master Level Wing Chun, God Level Singing, Actor Level Acting, Perspective Vision, Advanced Toxicology, Top Tier Hacking, 18 years of internal power. He closed his eyes, the silence of the suite finally pulling him under. Chapter 99. Upgrading the Poison Technique. Wang Haoran maintained a silent, mental ledger of every halo point he stripped from Xiao Yaifeng. The total sat at 165. Xiao Yaifeng had started with 726, meaning his current standing had withered to 561. Meanwhile, Haoran's own villainous halo had surged to 841. He now held a definitive lead of 280 points. It was finally time to remove the thorn from his side. He considered his options. He could spend 3,000 villain points to exchange for 6 years of internal power, which would boost his combat strength by 270. It was tempting, but it wasn't foolproof. Xiao Yaifeng possessed a combat strength of 983. Even with an upgrade, Haoran wouldn't have the absolute certainty required for a clean kill. If the protagonist escaped, the resulting fallout would be a catastrophic mess. Poison was the superior choice. Upgrading to the Supreme Poison Technique was a move beyond Xiao Yaifeng's comprehension. Even with the protagonist's master-level medical skills, he would have no defense. It was a true dimensionality reduction strike. There was only one obstacle: the upgrade from Advanced to Supreme required 4,000 villain points. Haoran only had 3,500. He was 500 short. He glanced toward the wall. A certain tool girl was waiting in the suite next door. She was the perfect candidate to help him bridge the gap. Without another thought, he put his plan into motion. Ding! The host has captured the heroine Fang Suan. 500 villain points awarded. Fang Heng's protagonist halo, -25. Fang Suan's heroine halo, -25. Host's villain halo +50. The reward manifested exactly as he had envisioned. With his points now totaling 4,000, he upgraded his toxicology in one breath. The transformation was instantaneous. The sheer depth of the knowledge was profound, far exceeding his previous limits. If the advanced level was the understanding of a dedicated student, the supreme level was the mastery of a doctoral advisor. The gap between them was a chasm. Haoran spent a moment digesting the new influx of data, quickly identifying a specific toxin within the Supreme Poison Sutra perfectly suited for Xiao Yaifeng. The only problem was the ingredients. Some were exceptionally rare, and he didn't have the time to hunt them down personally. He needed a reliable runner. Zhuozhao Chinaya was the obvious choice. Her life was already in his hands, ensuring her absolute silence. Furthermore, her network of subordinates and eyeliners across the city made her the ultimate logistics manager for his darker needs. The sun began to crest over the horizon at Tingxin Community. A resident, rushing out for an early shift, nearly tripped over a body lying near the flower beds. A panicked scream shattered the morning quiet, drawing a crowd. Xiao Yifeng hadn't slept a wink. His nerves were frayed and hypersensitive. Hearing the commotion, he sprinted to the scene and found the very man he had been hunting. The eagle lay there, battered and unconscious. Xiao Yifeng moved quickly to wake him, desperate for answers. But as the eagle's eyes opened, they remained dull and vacant. He checked the man's vitals and pupillary response, only to find something horribly wrong. Before he could investigate further, Ling Dunya arrived with her team. Not wanting to explain his presence, Xiao Yifeng slipped away before she could spot him. After a quick, distracted breakfast, he headed straight for the Qin group. "Did you find him?" Qin Kai asked the moment Xiao Yifeng entered the office. "I found him," Xiao Yifeng said, his voice heavy with regret. "But I couldn't get anything out of him." Qin Kai frowned. "Why not?" A master with significant internal strength destroyed his brain. "The eagle is a vegetable now. He's incapable of speech or memory. To do that to a man." Qin Kai looked stunned. "My guess is this master is no amateur. They have a deep understanding of human anatomy, and are likely proficient in medicine as well." Xiao Yifeng's face was uncharacteristically solemn. "What's their goal? Why target the eagle? Could they be working for the mastermind?" "Silencing a witness is the most likely motive," Xiao Yifeng judged. "In my opinion, this master is definitely connected to whoever is pulling the strings." Qin Kai leaned back, his eyes searching the younger man. "Compared to this master, who is stronger? You or them?" Xiao Yifeng allowed a confident smile to touch his lips. "If I find them, I'll take them alive. They have some internal strength, but it's shallow. They aren't in my league." Qin Kai let out a long sigh of relief, though his brow remained furrowed. If the eagle was a dead end, the mastermind remained a shadow. As long as that shadow existed, his daughter was a target. He opened a desk drawer and pulled out 3 thick folders. "Yifeng, I need you to look into these 3. Who are they?" "Business rivals," Qin Kai explained, handing over the files. "The people who want to hurt Yunhan are likely the ones I've crossed in the market. I've narrowed it down to these 3. They're all real estate moguls with net worths over 2 billion. They were in the game long before me, and as the Qin group grew, we squeezed their profits. They've hated me for years." Xiao Yifeng flipped through the pages. They all look like the same person. Oily skin, flowery complexions, just 3 greasy uncles. Qin Kai chuckled darkly. Wealth can be very nourishing, and middle-aged spread is hard to avoid. Unlike his rivals, Qin Kai remained disciplined. Despite being in his 40s, he kept his hair and his figure, showing only the inevitable wrinkles of a high-stress life. "Yunhan is usually safe at school during the day," Qin Kai continued. "She doesn't run around. Use that time to investigate these 3. "Won't run around?" Xiao Yifeng thought bitterly. "Your daughter was at a bar with another boy until 4 in the morning. He bit his tongue. He had promised Qin Yunhan to stay quiet, and he knew that breaking that promise would only make her despise him." "Uncle Qin," Xiao Yifeng said, choosing his words carefully. "The eldest miss and Wang Haoran are becoming very close. I think you need to sit her down and have a talk about her future." He couldn't mention the bar, but he could still sabotage the competition. If he let them continue like this, he would lose her. He couldn't let Wang Haoran snatch away what he believed was rightfully his. Chapter 100. A Night for Two. Yunhan and Haoran have known each other since they were children. It's only natural for them to grow close. Qin Kai spoke with an easy, dismissive air, leaning back in his executive chair. He didn't seem bothered by the bodyguard's report. "Uncle Qin, you don't understand," Xiao Yifeng insisted, his voice sharp and blunt. "I'm talking about a specific kind of closeness. This isn't just a childhood friendship anymore. They're acting like a couple." "Is that so?" Qin Kai's eyes widened in brief surprise before a relieved, paternal smile spread across his face. "Well, Yunhan is an adult now. It's perfectly normal for her to have those kinds of feelings. Besides, Haoran is an exceptional young man." Xiao Yifeng's face darkened until it was nearly purple. He had expected outrage, perhaps even a demand for intervention. Instead, Qin Kai seemed to be mentally picking out a wedding gift. It was true that on paper, the 2 families were a perfect match. A handsome heir and a beautiful heiress made for a fairy tale ending, but for Xiao Yifeng, it was a nightmare. "Since you have no objections, Uncle Qin, then I suppose I'm just playing the villain for nothing." The bodyguard kept his expression carefully neutral, though he was screaming internally. He wanted the eldest miss for himself, but he was smart enough to know that if he revealed his possessive streak to Qin Kai, he would be kicked out of the building in minutes. Yifeng, my assistant is waving at me. I have a meeting to attend, Qin Kai said, glancing at the door as he gathered his notes. Understood. I'll go back and review the files on those 3 real estate moguls. Xiao Yifeng nodded and retreated from the office. Once he was clear of the Qin Group headquarters, however, he didn't head for the archives. He had no intention of rushing the investigation into the potential masterminds. Qin Kai had hired him for protection. If the danger disappeared too quickly, so did his excuse to stay by the girl's side. He was in no hurry to retire. What truly terrified him wasn't an assassin's bullet, but the thought of Wang Haoran taking advantage of her. He had barely stomached the hand-holding. If it progressed to kissing, or something more intimate, he would lose his mind. If the father wouldn't act, the bodyguard would. Xiao Yifeng knew exactly how to neutralize a rival. To stop a man from chasing women, the most effective method was to remove the man's ability to catch them. History was full of examples. The eunuchs of the imperial court had been created for this very reason. He didn't plan on anything as loud or messy as a physical castration. With his mastery of the medical arts, he could render a man incapacitated through subtle, internal strikes. He would make it look like a natural failure, a tragedy that no doctor in the world but himself could fix. He turned his steps toward the school, his eyes cold with a predatory focus. The evening self-study break hummed with the sound of shuffling papers and quiet chatter. Inside the classroom, Zhaozhao leaned toward her friend. Sister Yunhan, I'm going home to visit my grandpa after class tonight. Is Grandpa Mu okay? He had a bit of heat stroke from exercising in the sun, Zhaozhao explained. The acupuncture helped, and he's much better, but I really want to check on him. I haven't been back home in a while. Of course, you should go. Qin Yunhan nodded, but her face quickly fell into a pout. Does that mean I have to sleep alone tonight? They had shared a room for years. Qin Yunhan was used to the company, and more importantly, she was still secretly afraid of the dark. The thought of the empty, silent dormitory made her skin crawl. It'll be fine, Zhaozhao reassured her. Just turn off the lights, close your eyes, and when you wake up, it'll be tomorrow. I don't think I'll be able to sleep at all. Why don't you invite another girl from class over? That way you won't be scared. No, Qin Yunhan sighed, gathering her courage. I'm only comfortable living with you. It's just for one night. I'll survive. Nearby, Wang Haoran adjusted his earphone. A faint smile touched his lips as he listened to the wireless transmission. Qin Yunhan, all alone for the night. He had been looking for a way to bridge the gap between deep love and something more tangible. This was a gift from the heavens. He packed his things as the final bell rang and the students began to stream out of the building. Qin Yunhan walked back to the teacher's dormitory alone, clutching her books against her chest. She reached her door and fumbled with her keys, the hallway feeling unusually long and quiet. Qin Yunhan? The voice came from just a few yards away. She spun around to see Wang Haoran walking toward her. He was carrying several plastic bags that gave off a savory, irresistible steam. The aroma of rich, spiced food filled the hallway. Haoran, what are you doing here? She asked, her voice brightening instantly. I picked up some supper, he said, lifting the bags. Hungry. Classes just ended. How did you get back with hot food so fast? I ducked out of get out of class early to run into town, he lied smoothly. In reality, he had simply messaged his driver to have the feast waiting. Qin Yunhan felt a warm flush in her chest. The thought that he had skipped class just to ensure she had a nice meal touched her more than any expensive gift. Ding. The host has moved the heart of the heroine Qin Yunhan. 100 villain points awarded. Come in, she said, pushing the door open. They stepped into the small suite, and Haoran set the containers on the table. Where's Mu Zhaozhao? He asked, playing the part of the uninformed friend. She went home tonight. Ah well. I bought enough for 3 people, I suppose. It looks like you'll have plenty for yourself. He began opening the 9 different boxes, laying out a spread that could feed a small army. I can't possibly eat all of this, she said, looking at the mountain of food, and then at him. Are you hungry? A little. Then eat with me, if you insist. Haoran smiled. He sat down and pulled the door shut behind him. Qin Yunhan didn't protest. This was the teacher's quarters, and people passed the door constantly. She didn't want a stray faculty member catching sight of her having a private midnight feast with a boy. Her own heart was already beating fast with a sense of guilty excitement. Haoran pulled out his phone and propped it up against a glass, starting a romantic drama. They ate slowly, picking at the delicacies while the movie played. Qin Yunhan, always conscious of her poise, took small, delicate bites, prolonging the meal. The minutes bled into one another. By the time the 90-minute film reached its climax, the food was mostly gone, and Yunhan leaned back, feeling pleasantly full. "It's 11 o'clock already," Haoran noted, checking his screen with a look of feigned surprise. "Is it really that late?" She let out a soft, happy sigh. Time had a way of disappearing when she was with him. The fear of being alone in the dark had been completely forgotten. To be continued. Hope you liked today's video. Join the community by subscribing and dropping a like. I'll be back with another update tomorrow. See you then.